7:02, we'll call the meeting to order. Let the record show that all council members are present. Can I have a motion for adoption of the agenda minus item 5?
So moved. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As we meet this evening, we acknowledge that Lafayette is part of the unceded ancestral homeland of the Bay Miwok people. The Bay Miwok and neighboring Ohlone people have lived in and moved through this place for thousands of years. They stewarded and shaped this land for hundreds of generations. We express our appreciation and gratitude for this profound legacy, which enhances and contributes to our lives to this day. We will strive to honor this land and strengthen our ties with the indigenous communities that continue to live and work in our East Bay region as our neighbors, community members. We acknowledge and honor them and their ancestors, elders, and next 7 generations. We are now at public comments. If anyone would like to address the council on any item that is not on tonight's agenda or a future agenda and is within the purview of the council, please fill out a speaker slip or welcome to take the podium and fill out a speaker slip.
The mayor is taking comments for items not on the agenda. We will take comments for speakers in the Don Tatson Community Hall first, and then we will go to people in our virtual audience. Elliot Hudson is our first speaker.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Anduri and members of the council. At your meeting on January 12th, you directed more work on the objective design standards for multifamily and mixed-use development to make them conform more closely to the mission statement directive that Lafayette should have a small town community character with semi-rural ambiance. I'm not going to address the item that's on for tonight. On March 5th, there was a working group meeting to move forward with that objective. Staff refused to disclose to me what happened at that meeting, so I'm talking to you now. Adopting those standards is years late, and it should not be delayed any more than necessary. That's on the agenda item. What is not on the agenda is the status of the draft standards themselves. So in the interest of expediting drafting acceptable standards as quickly as possible, I want to update the council with the hope that what we get next time won't have to be sent back yet again with more delay. I'm pleased to report that the drafts considered on March 5th had material improvements, including important clarifications to the purpose section and prohibiting flat roofs, which I appreciate. I am not so pleased to report that the March 5 draft still had 3 major flaws. Concerning roofs, someone had the extraordinary bad taste to include among acceptable roof forms butterfly and shed roofs. While they are not flat, they are ultra-modern on a large building and have absolutely nothing to do with semi-rural ambience. There's no reason to add them and every reason to remove them. But the worst of all the provisions were 2 relating to windows. Hallmarks of the admirable buildings at 1000 Dewing, Town Center 2, Byron Park in Walnut Creek, and 600 Hart Avenue, all of which were shown to you in the video before the last meeting, is that they had windows that did not have overly large single panes and did not occupy too large a percentage of the exterior wall. The draft you sent back for reconsideration had allowed single pane windows above the ground floor up to a monstrous 18 square feet. The March 5 draft had a meaningless reduction of that number by a mere 2 square feet to 16 square feet. To give you an idea how wrong that is, not one of the buildings I mentioned has even one single pane window that is even half that size. In fact, 16 square feet is even larger than on many of Walnut Creek's newest buildings. Further, the March 5 draft does nothing to prevent stringing 16 square foot single pane windows together all over an entire wall. At 16 square feet, no one will build with smaller panes unless they just happen to like the way they look, and that's not the objective. The second major flaw is that the total area of glass, while reduced, I'm almost done, from 60% of the surface area is still allowed for 45%. That's too much. None of the buildings I mentioned have more than 30%, and even glassy 210 Lafayette Circle is under 35%, according to the chair of the DRC.
Thank you very much.
Please talk to whoever's doing this, and hopefully you can approve the next draft.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for the speaker? Nope. Okay, thank you.
No additional speakers at this time, Mayor.
Okay, with the consent of my fellow council members, I'd like to offer a chance to speak during this period to anyone who's under 21 who had planned to speak later in the meeting.
I would suggest that we open up to anybody that's actually here now. It's gonna be late,
Well,
I hope. No? Okay. Who's in the room?
would anyone like to speak at this time?
Will the speaker please provide their name?
My name is Holden Smith, and I go to Spring Hill Elementary School. Like lots of other students, I walk to and from school, and there's no light or crossing sign. I don't feel safe walking home from school, and I'm going to 5th grade. I can't imagine what the younger kids would think, like the kindergartners. And if you take away the crossing guard, I worry there will be accidents on the intersecting roads.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anyone who would be accompanying her like to?
Thank you. I appreciate your time. My name is Caitlin Smith. I am Halden's mom. She also has 3 younger siblings who couldn't attend because this is past their bedtime. My husband and I moved to Lafayette for our kids to have a wonderful childhood, for the schools, for the safety, for the sense of community. We live on Prado Way at the end of Spring Hill Road, and the school encourages walking, biking to school as a healthy choice for our bodies, minds, good for the environment, reduces cars on the road, and it also builds their independence and confidence. And my husband and I, those are all values that we have as well. But to get to the elementary school coming from Spring Hill Road, our kids have to cross the Spring Hill Road and San Ruiz Court intersection, where Halden said there's no traffic light, there's not even a stop sign. And without Linda, our crossing guard, we would not feel like it's safe for our kids to walk on their own, or even I walk with them on the way home. I don't feel safe. The way the sun rises in the morning, the sun is directly in your eyes coming from Spring Hill Road. And Linda luckily has a vest and a stop sign, and she makes sure everybody gets there safely. I've seen people speed way above the 25 miles per hour regularly. Everybody is culpable, but certainly there's teenagers rushing to get to Acalanes in the morning. And in the afternoon, regularly there are people crossing the double yellow through the crosswalk around the line of cars going into the wrong lane to get around and down to Pleasant Hill. So our family, and certainly other neighborhood families I know, wouldn't feel safe about not driving our kids anymore, which I think is a real detriment to the community that we're creating at Spring Hill Elementary, which otherwise is a really wonderful place to have our kids. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Linda's name was mentioned. If there's no objection, if Linda would like to speak.
Hello, I'm Linda Rotundo. I live at 3163 Stanley Boulevard in Lafayette. And over the years, I've been involved in many community enhancing organizations. Most relevant to tonight's discussion is a grassroots effort I led nearly 20 years ago, the Acalanes Valley and Ridge Neighborhood Initiative to improve walkability and create safer routes for students and residents traveling to Spring Hill Elementary, Acalanes High Schools, Springbrook Pool, and beyond. Through a partnership between residents and the city, sidewalks and traffic calming measures were added, making it safer and easier for children and adults alike to walk rather than drive. Later, when residents at the Spring Hill Road neighborhood sought to improve pedestrian access for Spring Hill Elementary, they reached out for my assistance. Their effort ultimately resulted in the sidewalk connections that many families use today, like Holden and her family. They, for the past 12 plus years, I've been the crossing guard, and it's been my pleasure to do so at Spring Hill Road and San Release Court. I understand the need for fiscal responsibility and difficult budget decisions are being made. However, I would urge the council to take a deeper look at this location. Based on what I've witnessed over more than a decade at this intersection, I believe removing crossing guard coverage would remove an important layer of protection at a location where it is regularly needed, increase the risk of pedestrian-involved accidents, and discourage the very thing our community has worked so hard to encourage, children walking safely to school. Spring Hill Road is the only entrance and exit for the neighborhood. During school dismissal, traffic frequently becomes gridlocked in both directions as residents attempt to leave and enter and parents arrive for pickup. The issue at this location is not pedestrian volume. It is the ongoing presence of the conditions that increase the likelihood of an incident. The greatest concern is the combination of congestion, limited visibility, unpredictable driver behavior, and understandably distracted child behavior. Drivers routinely stop within crosswalks waiting in traffic. If those vehicles remain in place, children are forced to walk around them and into the roadway. Every day, I direct drivers to clear one way or the other to allow children to safely proceed. One last point, when traffic is backed up, visibility is reduced for both drivers and pedestrians. Despite effort by the city to address the issue of drivers still routinely jump the lane. They enter the opposing lane, accelerate to bypass queued traffic. And because that maneuver is unexpected, it creates particularly dangerous situations for pedestrians who have limited visibility because of the queued traffic. I believe, you know, the anticipation is unknown. They're not expecting a car to come speeding down the road.
Thank you very much.
So please reconsider this location for removal. Thank you.
Are there any questions for the speaker?
I do have a quick question. Thank you, and I appreciate your work on traffic. Obviously, it's a kind of a sacred responsibility what you're doing. I appreciate it. I am curious, when the school district said they were cutting the funding for traffic, did you speak to them about the impact of their funding cuts for the crossing guard?
I've been notified by anyone actually, other than the parents who
wondering,
wished
yeah.
me well.
Yeah.
But there was one day, and I must say, the volume isn't really the issue with this location, but someone did come out on one day, a particularly, maybe even the coldest day of the year, on a rainy week to tally the number of people that use the crosswalk. So I don't think that was a valid indication of the use. But again, volume is not the issue. But to answer your question, sir, no, I have not heard officially from anyone for any reason.
Thank you.
Other than years ago with the circulation committee, who did make some enhancements for safety.
Yeah, Linda, thank you so much for speaking, and also Caitlin and your daughter. I want to just understand this behavior you're describing about people coming over into the oncoming traffic, because we knew we had that issue years ago, and it was happening to the east of San Release Court intersection. So that's why all those yellow candlesticks were put up to try to keep people from doing that. Slink back over. But so now what are they doing exactly?
Well,
Given
it's
that
helped. It's helped. It's just now that they stay in the opposing lane farther to bypass the,
So they go all the way past the
Yeah.
six. Wow.
yeah. So that's why they speed up to try to avoid the oncoming traffic, but they speed up and children trying to cross cannot see them coming. They don't expect them to come in the opposite direction. So yeah, so it happens actually in both directions because the gridlock happens in both directions.
So they might be getting into the wrong lane further west of San Release Court,
Yes.
west of the crosswalk.
Yeah.
And, okay, well, thank you for clarifying that.
Hey, I just want to vouch for your years of service on that corner. I go by you all the time, and I want to thank you for your service.
Yep. My pleasure. Truly, the families are wonderful, and it's been really my honor to help keep the neighborhood safe. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comment? Okay, we'll move on to the city manager's update.
Thank you, Mayor Anduri. The Public Art Committee invites residents to a downtown murals program workshop on Wednesday, June the 24th. Attendees will learn about the program, meet project partners, and have an opportunity to provide input on the selection of Lafayette's next downtown mural artist. From engineering, both PG&E and East Bay Mud are working throughout Lafayette, but primarily on Moraga Road, School Street, Topper Lane, and Brook Street. Notices for the start of our 2026 road paving project have gone out to directly impacted residents, and preliminary work is planned to start later this week. And finally, I wanted to remind the community that the city is still accepting applications for 3 at-large positions on the new Multimodal Mobility Advisory Committee. This committee will help provide community input on the Mount Diablo Corridor Multimodal Mobility Study, as well as several related transportation and mobility projects that will be underway over the next couple of years. All information can be found on our website. And that's the end of my presentation.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Okay. And is there any public comment? No. All right. This brings us to this month's lifelong learning presentation. Lafayette's mission statement calls out our commitment to lifelong learning, and through organizations such as the city's Public Art Committee, the city seeks to embed the arts in our civic life and in the fabric of our community. During 2026 and 2027, we will help strengthen these civic values through presentations at the beginning of the first council meeting of each month by an organization that offers lifelong learning opportunities or promotes appreciation of the arts. This month's featured organization is Loma Linda Village. Its primary mission is to provide the support and connections that will help older adults remain in their homes as they get older. When most of us think of the village, we think of the many services that the village provides to older adults, including transportation to medical or other appointments, home maintenance, technical support, social support such as check-in calls, and household support such as grocery shopping and delivery, and short-term help with meal preparation. But a large part of what the village does as it builds a vibrant community that enables older adults to live and thrive is to provide lifelong learning opportunities. This evening, the village's executive director, Catherine Ishizu, and its community outreach manager, Susie Pack, will tell us about those opportunities. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to the City of Lafayette for highlighting organizations that help strengthen lifelong learning, creativity, and community engagement. My name is Catherine Ishizu, and I'm the Executive Director of Loma Linda Village, a nonprofit serving older adults throughout Lafayette, Orinda, Moraga. Our mission is to help older adults remain connected and engaged, independent as they age. As Mayor mentioned, many people know La Miranda Village for the volunteer services that we provide, but an equally important part of our work is creating opportunities for people to stay active, curious, creative, and socially connected. Over the past several years, La Miranda Village has expanded into a comprehensive healthy aging organization offering wellness programs, educational classes, arts and cultural experiences, and community partnerships that support physical, cognitive, and emotional well-being of older adults. As part of a recent strategic planning process focused on healthy aging, one theme emerged consistently: older adults find meaningful intellectual engagement a priority. Thanks in large part to the support of the City of Lafayette and to the many partnerships cultivated throughout the community by our community outreach manager, Susie Pack, La Miranda Village has been able to significantly expand these opportunities. I'd like to turn it over to Susie, who will be sharing more about these opportunities that La Miranda Village offers.
Great. So I'm just going to dive right into some of the great programs that we do offer to not just Lafayette residents, not just La Miranda Village members, but to the community at large. As Catherine alluded to, one of the main focuses of La Miranda Village is healthy aging. And so what we have incorporated is something called the Healthy Aging Lecture Series that brings experts together with our community to discuss topics that matter deeply as we all age. Things like healthcare navigation, mental awareness, caregiving, Medicare, fraud prevention, healthy living, and strategies for maintaining independence, which is one of our core values. But these programs do more than just provide information. What they do is give people encouragement and confidence, and they help older adults make informed decisions, encourage them to advocate for themselves and to navigate complex systems that are oftentimes overwhelming. We also host weekly village conversations that are online, where seniors gather to discuss current issues, community resources, cultural topics, and the many questions that arise as we all age. These talks are held on Zoom, and we also archive each recording. So if you miss them or you don't have time, you want to come back later, they're all available on our website. And these conversations create a space where learning and connection happen simultaneously. We have a great tech support system where members learn and receive individualized assistance on how to use smartphones, tablets, desktops, and online tools. We have a drop-in tech support program, and we also offer classes through the Lafayette Community Center on how to take better pictures with your iPhone, which I must admit I need to take. Mine are blurry. But, you know, it's important for us to help our community keep their collective minds alert, active, and engaged. Because we all know that research consistently shows that cognitive stimulation contributes to healthy aging. And our members and community embrace that challenge enthusiastically. We have a brain enrichment class series also offered through the Lafayette Community Center at no charge to anyone 65 and older. This is led by a retired cardiologist, Dr. Prasad Palakirthi. And this class series encourages participants to sharpen their memories, strengthen critical thinking, and engage in lively discussions. We also offer things like drop-in bridge at Merrill Gardens, drop-in mahjong through All Ages Recreation downtown, as well as the library, that provides intellectual stimulation as well as social interaction. They are opportunities to exercise the brain while building relationships. We have a writers group, we have a book club, we have many different classes that we offer: flower arranging, photography, things that really encourage creativity, self-expression, and continuous learning. And one of the most remarkable things that we witness is the wealth of knowledge and experience that older adults living here in Lafayette and surrounding areas bring to our community. So a lot of these classes are taught or discussions are led by volunteers or trained professionals that we are able to, pay for their services from the donations that we receive. The arts also provide important opportunities for enrichment and connection. Our members and community participate in music salons, symphony outings, opera excursions, holiday sing-alongs, and even we're wrapping up our first series on hula lessons, also available at All Ages Recreation downtown. So these experiences remind us all that learning and discovery do not end at retirement. They really continue throughout life. But I think probably the most significant thing about all of these activities that we offer is it really addresses probably the most significant challenge as we age, which is social isolation. So these programs really give folks of varying backgrounds and varying interests something to attend, to learn from, and to keep their minds and lives active and thriving. So we believe that healthy aging is not simply about adding years to life. It's about adding life to our years. So on behalf of Loma Linda Village, all of our volunteers, our very tiny and limited staff, we really appreciate the support and the encouragement that we have received from the city of Lafayette. We're entering now probably our 4th year of this relationship. And I think every year it gets stronger and stronger because of your support. And it's amazing what we've been able to do. And we're making headway in the Morinda of Loma Linda, which is great. But I really, we all appreciate just the leadership and the initiative that our town has taken in being a vital part of our success. So thank you.
Wow, thank you for that presentation and thank you for all you do. Are there questions or comments?
Thank you. I learned about Loma Linda Village through Don Jenkins when we were on the General Plan Advisory Committee together, walking around the downtown, working on the housing element. And he talked about what Loma Linda Village was about. I thought this is the most amazing organization, so I joined. And the attention that Loma Linda Village gives to its members, I'm not an active member by any means stretch at all, but just like for birthdays and other things, I think this is such a great touch. And I think it's part of what makes this community special. And so the work you do is really remarkable. And I love the notion of like keeping individuals engaged so they can move through life in a fulfilling and meaningful way. So thank you all very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. You two ladies are pillars in our community. You have both donated so much of your time and your energy, and it pays off so well. Thank you so much. You didn't mention the time I learned about you guys at the beginning of COVID when I called you and I'm like, hey, these elderly people can't get out. Can you ramp up and take care of people at home? And you said, oh yeah, we can do that. And you did. It was unreal how you jumped to this community's in our biggest need. So thank you.
Yes, I can only echo everything that Councilmember Candell said because it's true. I just want to put a special shout out. I think the tech leadership is like super important. I mean, not getting Zoom, but just the tech classes. I mean, we all know technology is moving so quickly, which contributes to even more isolation if you're uncomfortable with the web browser, uncomfortable with your phone, uncomfortable with AI, all that stuff. And so I really think staying on top of that with our senior population, because it can be a boom if done well, but also protects them against scams and all the things that happen. So I just really want to thank you for taking point on that. It's just one little element of everything you do, and greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for everything that you do. I mean, we all say the same thing here, right? But really, it's true. It's true. Thanks for it. The range of offerings is incredible that you just went through. I have to say I need to take a lead from Councilmember Cervantes, and I need to join. Really. Yeah. I think I knew about some of these, but not all of them. And, you have a reputation that precedes you out in the community. I was talking to someone who's a Moraga resident who's maybe on that cusp, that age. And she knew about Don's Happy Hour. And she's like, yeah, what is this Don's Happy Hour thing? So the activities that you sponsor and provide are so important, and just really appreciate the consistency that you're there every week providing opportunities for seniors and really everyone in our community. So Cheers to you. Thank you.
Would any member of the public like to comment?
We have no speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. On to item 10B, our annual police department update. Chief Williams, the floor is yours.
CJ, Lieutenant Williams has hooked up his laptop. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Anduri, Vice Mayor McCormick, City Council members, member of the public. My name is James Williams. I'm Lafayette Police Department Chief of Police. Thank you for allowing me to provide the brief review of the Lafayette Police Department's 2025 annual report. I think 2025 was a year of partnership, prevention, and proactivity. Lafayette remains one of the safer cities in California, thanks to the combined efforts of our city council, of our residents, our businesses, our employees here, our regional partners, and of course, Lafayette PD staff. Overall, Lafayette PD, we handled 16,113 calls for service. That's up 3% from the previous year. We've issued 2,088 traffic citations, which again is up 39% from 2024. And we've got our FBI Part 1 crimes were 273, which is 13% below our 10-year average, which is great. Sorry, I'm reading my notes here. So despite the increased workload, the FBI Part 1 crimes dropped from 329 to 273. I think it's great work by citizens calling in to report things as much as it is the officers on viewing traffic stops, pedestrian stops, and responding to crimes, which is great. Traffic citations, as I noted, were up from the previous year, in part due to patrol saturation, where we worked the 3 cities, Orinda, Lafayette, and Danville. They try to get 9 in for the year, and that's 3 at each city. And we do that. So our next one is coming up in August, I believe. And I'll put out a reminder and some type of social media post so people know there's going to be a lot of traffic sites in there. So, and it's not just about issuing the citations, it's about making our streets safer and getting our traffic collisions down, which you'll see later in the report that happened in 2025. Again, the next page here, we've got, again, calls for service had gone up in 2025. I did some quick math. That's about 1,342 calls per month on average, or per day. That's about 44 calls for service. And again, for Lafayette PD, right now we have a sergeant and 2 officers on. We have 2 beats. And during the day, we'll have detectives on. We'll have our CSI. We'll have parking enforcement. We have 17 sworn staff, including me, 5 professional staff, and 3 part-time parking enforcement officers. And so with the increased workload, we still were able to bring down some significant numbers. So I'm very happy with that. On the persons crimes, again, about a 10-year low average. The robbery, we had 7. Assaults, we had 2. And again, all of these are that too many. There's 7 too many robberies and too many assaults. So, but happy with the numbers that they're down. The FBI uniform crime reporting rates for 100,000 people, we are at 48 per 100,000. Again, using that from 24, it was 359 per 100 for the 100,000 for the national average, and for California was 486 for 100,000. So Lafayette is a fraction of those numbers, which is great. On the property crimes, the burglaries, larcenies, auto thefts, total 259. Again, if you look at our number per 100,000, we're at 1,034 versus the national average at 1,760 and the California average at 2,078. So great numbers. This page covers the traffic citations, which I said we went up to 2,088 from the previous year of 1,499. How that plays into our traffic collisions, we got people to slow down, be more aware. And our traffic accidents had gone down, as you can see here in the numbers. Put on my readers here for a second. So in 2025, we had 31 hit and runs reported, 0 fatalities, which is great. That's the 4th year in a row for that. We had 20 traffic accidents with injuries and 43 total accidents for the year. So really low numbers, which is great. Police services. We've got parking enforcement. We have obviously we oversee 2 commissions, the Lafayette Emergency Preparedness Commission and the Crime Prevention Commission. We handle licensing at the PD. We do community event supports. We're looking to do the Citizens Academy is a bit preemptive for 2025. We hosted our first one since I've been chief earlier this year. So that'll be coming up on our goals for 2026 and moving forward, as well as we perform vacation house checks for citizens while they're away. Our emergency services, as you know, emergency services coordinator Andy Comley is doing a lot of great work. He's been holding town hall meetings, going to people, citizens, neighborhoods to go talk about FireWise, emergency response, and community warning system. He's been holding training for the Lafayette employees to make sure that they understand how to respond to emergencies and how we activate from the city perspective, what the goals are, what their jobs should be. And of course, mutual aid and our state level involvement, where he's been working closely with people from the senators and congressmen's offices. This year, we brought back our Officer of the Year award, and that went to Detective Poland. Unfortunately, Sharon Lloyd retired as well, so maybe the citizens will be happy that there were less parking citations issued in 2025. We miss her dearly. She's great, and we're getting our new parking enforcement officers to get in that rhythm that she was once in. And again, our summary for 2025, pardon me. We increased our presence in the community. I hosted 10 Coffee with the Cops in 2025, which is great to get out there and make ourselves available, communicate with our citizens to hear their concerns. It was great to have parking enforcement officers there because a citizen would walk up and say something like, I don't understand if I'm supposed to park here because this meter might be faded. I'm like, I'm not really sure. I'm going to get you an answer. And I was able to put a parking enforcement officer with them. Or they had a question about certain types of cameras and how the detectives handle things. So it was great to have these events where I could just build bridges with people before something would happen to them, which is great. In 2026, our goal is to continue the proactive policing. We've already done 4 Coffee with the Cops, have at least 2 more planned. We're going to increase enforcement, not only with e-bike, but e-scooters as well. And we're working to get some information out about the enforcement guide with that right now. We're going to continue to grow Lafayette's preparedness to respond to a disaster. Some of the events we also hosted or went to was the LPI Science Fair, where our CSIs visited and held the kids to do some fingerprinting, which was great. When I was selected as the chief of police, one of my goals was to strengthen community partnerships while maintaining proactive policing. Looking back at 2025, I believe our staff accomplished both of those things. Crime declined, traffic safety improved, community engagement expanded, and most importantly, our employees continue to serve Lafayette with our core values of honor, courage, commitment, leadership, and teamwork. With that, that is the end of that. So if you guys have any questions or comments, please let me know.
Great report and great results. Comments, questions?
Start. Thank you very much. Tremendous report. And I mean, I think it's important to note that just noting that in almost every category, we are down from 2023, 2024, 2025. So I have
Citations.
except for citations, which is actually down in a better way. Like it's also positive, moving in a positive direction, I guess. So that's just really phenomenal. I also want to commend, and this wasn't on your report, but I actually think the usage of social media, Nixle, and community communication is just, as you're probably, it's my bugaboo for the last several years. It's just phenomenal now. It's just like, I just really feel like it's another great way. I mean, Coffee with the Cops is good, and you reach a few people, but just, I think that usage is just really helping the community feel like the police are really engaged, know what's going on, and I just really want to encourage more of it. I think it just cannot be overstated. And I think also, and just I'll close with this: 0 traffic fatalities 4 years in a row is just like unbelievable. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for your feedback.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chief Williams. Really appreciate the trend line that we're seeing in every area. I was curious about residential burglaries because that was, we were having a real issue about 10 years ago, and it's been up and down, but on the whole, it's down. I'm wondering if you have any ideas about why. Could it be cameras, like more of the home cameras? Could it be more people working from home?
I think you're hitting on things we've talked about at the PD, why those trends, why they happen that way. The cameras at the front door on the property, they definitely help deter that type of crime. People working from home is also another solution that can help people not get broken into. I'd like to think it's because people are being held accountable, and when we identify a certain group that comes through or a person and they get arrested before my time here, that they're serving time and not be able to come back. I know our officers do tell people when they come in, whether it be to steal from a local business or come and do any crime in here, we often tell them you shouldn't have come to Lafayette because we're going to find out who you are. And once or twice we've had people say, they told me not to come to Lafayette, and I should have listened to them because the word's out there. Don't come to Lafayette because we have all the cameras. We have the guys and gals that are going to put work in. And it's not just with our sworn staff. I mean, we have people, our professional staff that's out there doing the work as well. They want to find these people. Our parking enforcement officers maintaining all the cameras, making sure all those SIM cards and batteries are all backed up. It's great. It's great work.
That's great. I have a question about the e-bike strategy. I know in the past you've been focused on education. Are you starting to shift more into enforcement now that you're getting the laws out to the community so they should understand what they want and comply?
Sure. I would like to see more enforcement. I don't know if you've read the post for the last one with the parking, with the what happened with one of the officers when a couple of juveniles sped away, and our comment section lit up. And I understand both sides of it. And we would like to do as much education as we can and continue to educate, but the reality is that the next step, it needs to happen. And the last words I had with my staff there, my sergeants, is that the education time is over and enforcement's here. So I'd like to see more enforcement happening. I don't want to have the kids get in trouble that way, the parents, but that's where we're at, because I don't want trends that are happening down in Southern California to happen here in the Bay Area, and especially in Lafayette. If I can, just for a brief moment, with that, the citation that the juveniles received, because they're under 16 years old, more than likely the officer had gone the infraction route of the unlicensed driver, and that will go to a traffic commissioner who he or she will hopefully do some type of enforcement of community services hours, hold some proverbial carrot in front of the juvenile to have him or her do some hours, some education, and to make sure that they understand why. The parents in all 3 of those understood. And as far as I know from the officer, we were 3 for 3 for the parents better understanding what the law was, and that they would all 3 be held accountable should the juveniles be seen on the bikes again. And all 3 of them had said that they're getting rid of the bikes, either giving them away or selling them. I mean, look, they're fun. I've seen people do fun things on them, but they got to be off-road. They can't be on the city streets. They're too heavy, they're too fast, and the juveniles who are riding them are not always, number one, it's illegal for the e-motorcycles specifically, but it's not safe, and we got to get them off the road.
Well, I appreciate that. I saw a Talaria come online as a please take it away. Like, I want to sell it, but I need it gone.
Right.
So thank you.
You're welcome.
Outstanding. And thank you for that update. I'm really glad to hear that you are shifting over. I mean, it's sad, it's terrible, but it is such a danger at this point to see kids doing wheelies, down Deer Hill Road through the intersections. It's crazy.
Right.
So we're trying to get the laws passed to make them better for you. They're getting watered down, and it's just happening. I guess RBK's bill got killed in committee. I know And so we'll do our best, and let us know if there's anything we can do as a city to, if we have to pass our own laws, if you have ideas. I know Andy has ideas. And so
Certainly.
if we get to that point, please, bring it back to us and we'll take action.
Thank you for that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, thanks very much. This is a great report, and it's always good to see the trend line where crimes are going down.
Yes, sir.
Except for traffic citations, and part of that, I gather, is the shock and awe campaign that you are mounting with our 2 other departments. I'm kind of curious, what kind of feedback are you getting from that kind of an effort so far?
Well, what I've seen online when we posted is why are other agencies in our city enforcing those rules? And the fact is that we can do that. And overall, people are happy. I feel, I mean, just even given this report and seeing the nodding of the heads, just with the 5 of you here, I understand that's our goal, right? Slow down Lafayette, the traffic safety. When you see the end result of the traffic accidents going down, the fact we're on a 4-year run of the no fatality, it's hard to sell not doing it, really. And I think we owe it to our community to do the enforcement. Again, it's not just for the citations. It's to get people to be aware and to slow down.
Yeah.
So.
We just had other speakers earlier commenting around people cutting around the road and off on the Spring Hill Road. So clearly there's a lot of need for attention to that, and it's greatly appreciated the effort that you're making. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And just following up on that, you might mention there is really no financial benefit to those
I
citations.
was going to say that, but I don't have the numbers in front of me. It is minimal at best, right? There's not a lot of money
That's
that gets
not
generated
why
in the city.
we do it.
Yeah.
I don't have the number in front of me for the actual money for the site, sir, but.
Is there any member of the public who would like to comment or raise a question?
The mayor and the city council are taking comments on item 10B, the update annual police report. I have 1 speaker in the Don Tatson Community Hall, Rob Sturm, and I have no hands raised in our virtual audience.
Okay, welcome.
Hey, I hadn't planned to speak on this, but as long as I'm here, I figure I might as well try and make myself useful. And I want to, I'm here both as a member of the community and as a individual member of the Lafayette School District Governing Board. And I want to express appreciation to the partnership that we have had with the city and in particular with our police chief and his staff. You folks have done a great job, and we really appreciate the partnership on a variety of fronts. I did just quickly want to raise 2 issues for awareness purposes. First, at either the April or May regular board meeting, my memory is a little bit fuzzy, but within the last 2 board meetings, we did have an agendized item on whether or not the board supported, pursuant to statute and our own board bylaws, putting forward a reward of some sort, because we have had more vandalism in the last year at our school sites than we had in the entirety of my duration on the board. We have had a half dozen separate incidents, including a hate crime at Stanley Middle School and vandalism of property, including our brand new facility at Burton Valley. And I think adjacent to the issue, you've done great work on promoting awareness and education. And that's where the board discussion ultimately landed, is there was not support for some more aggressive approach, like a specific reward. But I do believe there was broad support for continuing that partnership with the city and with the police to enhance awareness and sort of leverage the hive, our village. It takes a village, and sometimes you need the support and awareness of the village to effect positive change. But it is really saddening to see us, on the one hand, being so careful with every dollar, and only to then also see it expended to repair and replace, in some cases, literally brand new property that we have brought into the schools. Second, and I know you are already working on this, but I will reaffirm the consistent with the discussion that you just had on e-bikes, bicycle education is something, is a key area for us to partner on. And I know there's broad support within the district for us, whether it's e-bikes or simply the traditional bikes, and knowing the rules of the road and how to navigate safely. Our students have never been drivers, so they don't appreciate the perspective of a driver when they are navigating our trails and streets on a bicycle. And so whatever we can do there to improve upon that would be welcomed. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the speaker? No, thank you very much.
No additional speakers at this time.
Okay, Chief, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we are now on item 12A, settlement agreement between Housing Action Coalition and the City of Lafayette.
Do we want to do 11A?
Oh, sorry.
And s-
Yep. Does anyone want to remove anything from the consent calendar? Nope. Is there any member of the public who would like to request?
No requests?
Okay, have a motion for adoption.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. And now we're on 12A. Ms. Subramanian.
Thank you, Mayor. As you're aware, the city adopted its housing element back in 2024. It was then certified by HCD. And then shortly thereafter, the city was sued by Housing Action Coalition in March of 2025. They made allegations related to our site inventory and our arena capacity. In order to see if we might be able to settle the lawsuit, we entered into discussions with HAC. There has been recent housing law, particularly new case law, that has posed risk to the city's housing element. And therefore, we are recommending that the city authorize the city manager to execute the attached settlement agreement. The settlement agreement has some conditional requirements that would need to incur before HAC would dismiss the lawsuit. This includes upzoning a variety of properties. There are properties located in the downtown that would go from 60 to 65 dwelling units per acre. Those are shown in Exhibit A to the settlement agreement, and as well as properties located in the downtown that would go from 35 to 45 dwelling units per acre. An additional upzone of 2 acres of the De Silva South property would be increased to 35 dwelling units per acre. As part of the settlement, the city would agree to not use the faith-based organization properties for no net loss purposes and pay HAC's attorney's fees of approximately $120,000. If the city completed all of the upzoning and payment of attorney's fees by the end of the year, HAC would dismiss the lawsuit. As part of the settlement, the city would be able to also use additional identified parcels to increase the no net loss buffer that the city would otherwise be losing from the faith-based organization properties. In addition, the settlement agreement does not require the city to amend its housing element, so the housing element will stay as is and certified by HCD. At this point, we're asking you to authorize the city manager to execute the attached settlement agreement, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, we'll have questions for the city attorney, just questions. Then we'll open it for public comment, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss the item. So are there any questions for our city attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. I have one. So we received correspondence on this topic. One of the questions was raised in a couple of cases was, in as much as the Housing Action Coalition, they don't reside here, they're a Bay Area group. How do they have standing to actually sue the city of Lafayette? I mean, how do they have the ability to do that?
Councilmember Cervantes, any interested party can enforce housing element laws, so they do have standing to sue the city.
I think for the benefit of the public who may not be familiar with all of the fine detail of the housing element law, could you explain the no net loss provisions that you referenced?
Sure. As you will recall, in our housing element, we identified numerous opportunity sites in which we presumed a level of affordability for those sites. Should those sites develop at levels that are not matched in what we identified. We have a buffer, but should we go below the buffer of our RENA obligations, we are required to upzone in order to meet the RENA obligations that we received. So that faith-based organization sites that we included in our no net loss calculations and included for our buffer purposes, we would no longer be able to utilize those sites. We would be able to utilize additional parcels that we have identified in place of those so that our buffer does increase.
Okay, public comments.
I have one speaker slip for persons in the community hall, Elliot Hudson, and currently I have no hands raised in our virtual audience.
Okay, welcome back.
Yep, good evening again. I'm not going to comment on whether the city should enter into this agreement because I understand it's essentially a done deal. I'm going to limit my comments to two provisions, or rather omissions from the terms of the settlement agreement. To provide context and not to blow my own horn, I have a pretty good idea what I'm talking about. I'll remind you that I was a litigation attorney for 45 years, including in major complex litigation. I wrote or revised literally hundreds of settlement agreements, including a vast array of cases. That included housing discrimination cases where compliance with state or federal law was challenged, and multi-million-dollar cases involving complex issues. So I've read more than a few settlement agreements. None of them were ever challenged in court. The biggest issue I have with the settlement agreement is there is no what I would call escape clause in the event the state law changes so that these upzonings are no longer required. Under the agreement as now written, it is entirely possible that if state law changed to allow a lesser density, HAC could argue that Lafayette has contractually bound itself to retain this really horrific density. That cannot be allowed, and the fact that there is no specific provision protecting Lafayette's flexibility is inexcusable. The second omission I'm a little less clear on, but I think this is right. There is no carve out for historic areas of the city. After spending millions of dollars on, for example, the Park Theater, if it's going to be upzoned to residential, again, that should not have happened, and it should not happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for the speaker? Nope. Okay, is there any other public comment?
No additional comments?
Okay. We'll bring it back to the council. Let me ask City Attorney if you'd like to respond to either of those points.
We, on the latter question about the certain properties that might be considered historic, we don't have any current protection for those properties. If you wanted to have protection, you would need to carve them out of the settlement agreement, which would require additional negotiation. And then
But the the Park Theater doesn't border on Mount Diablo Boulevard. So it's not part of a settlement.
I'm going to ask, I think our community development director is probably looking at the map as we speak. But they currently, to be clear, do not have any protected designations, so.
No, understood. But in our discussions, we were always talking about properties that actually abutted Mount Diablo Boulevard.
Our community development director has confirmed that you're correct, that
Okay,
it's not
good.
being
So
touched as part
that's
of
not
that.
an issue.
So at least the Park Theater and the Wayside Inn and all that is protected, is not included in the upzone.
They're not in this.
They'll they'll stay zoned as is.
Not being upzoned. And then the other, on Mr. Hudson's first point, I may have this wrong, but we're entering into this agreement that basically says if we do if we change the zoning, then the suit will be dismissed. If the law changes between now and the time we do that, we don't go, we can make a decision whether or not we can move forward or not.
Correct. They would not dismiss the lawsuit. If the law changed in that window before the end of the year,
Yeah, so.
that somehow favored us and made no sense for us to continue with this, then.
Yeah, sorry, we're just, and if we change the zoning, then whether there's an escape clause or not, we can't go back and change our zoning under state law just because we had an agreement, an escape clause in the settlement agreement. We can only change our zoning if we upzone other properties to equal it out. That doesn't change.
You're correct.
So I can understand reasons for escape clauses in settlement agreements, but that actually doesn't matter in this for this particular reason in this settlement agreement.
I think that's correct, Mayor. And then if I might add a third point, I don't think we would have a settlement agreement if we were to try to add an escape clause.
And but I'm just saying for this purpose, it's irrelevant.
I think what the question was, if state law changes after, but are we still contractually obligated? Like if the no net loss, for some miracle change,
At that point, it has nothing to do with contract. We have changed our zoning.
if we want to do down zone it after that,
We would have to upzone simultaneously other property.
if the no net loss went away, that's what he's saying. If state law changed,
If it changed that drastically.
I'm just saying, just hypothetically, and it all of a sudden we were allowed to downzone without the net loss, how would that be impacted by this? Or is this a contract that we signed that said forever?
I don't think we're bound forever because you can always change zoning, but we're going to be bound by the state law that's in effect. I would be very surprised.
I'm not, yes.
So
Hypothetical.
So I wouldn't want anyone in the public to think that was something that could happen. But, we have to comply with state law in the future. So if there was some provision that allowed us to adjust, that would be something we would look at that time.
Okay, other comments and questions?
Just a comment, actually, just kind of for the record. I mean, I think I would say the council didn't not go into this lightly. I mean, we've been working many months on this. Some of us even more than others. And I mean, stipulate, the settlement is what settlement is, but I'm incredibly proud of the progress we made on housing in Lafayette, despite this settlement. Even if we didn't have the settlement, we made great progress on housing, and we will continue to do so, regardless of the settlement. It does, tie our hands a little bit more than might otherwise, but we'll continue to move forward.
Yeah, maybe by way of comment, City Attorney referenced the approval of the housing element at the December 16, 2024 meeting. I remember that because that was my first meeting as a council member. And at the time I made a comment that marked the approximate 4-year anniversary of my time involved with the housing element, because the General Plan Advisory Committee kicked off about then in the year 2020 in the pandemic to start this venture, which took the next 4 years. The GPAC spent about 15 months on it. There was the Planning Commission who considered our recommendations, made some modifications, went to City Council. Our mayor, Councilmember Candel, were involved in this. We went through 4 rounds with Housing Community Development, HCD, to get to the point where we could approve something in December 2024. So that was a long struggle to get there. And I'm profoundly disappointed that we got sued on this, given all the effort that was involved in that. To at least, I kind of felt like we should just try, it'd be great to try to make it work, something that the community spent 4 years on, but that's my complaint. I do know that, and can share, I think, that after we were sued by the Housing Action Coalition, or HAC, we spent 12 closed sessions to discuss the matter. An ad hoc committee comprised of our mayor and current mayor were very involved in the effort beyond that. So this was a full-on attempt to address the litigation, the challenge to the housing element. And I can see from my perspective, which I think is shared, that The, there were two things that were of paramount concern. One of which was if the housing element got somehow overturned, it would take an unknown amount of time to get there. Maybe not 4 years as the current one, but it would take time. And during that time, the city of Lafayette would be exposed to the builder's remedy, which is basically anarchy and development, where a developer could come in, if you want to put a 12-story building up, go ahead. So I think we were very conscious of the consequences of a failure in litigation, high-risk stakes. And the other issue that was a particular concern to me, and I think my colleagues, is we really wanted to avoid an upzone in single-family residential neighborhoods, which is what this settlement does. You look at it, it's really the commercial strip along Mount Diablo Boulevard. And we were able, the starting point for the other side was considerably different than where we ended up with. So I think, at least for me, in my view of this, it wasn't the case of the perfect is the enemy of the good. Maybe it's the perfect is the enemy of the good enough. But this protected the key elements that, to me, which involved the protecting single-family residential, like in the downtown community, and focusing the upzone on the commercial part of it. And, you know, not my ideal solution, but I think to me, this is something that's workable. It avoids litigation, which I think of this in terms of how much of Measure H do you spend on something? At ballpark, $1.5 million for our side. If you lose, you pay the attorney's fees to the other side. Now that's a full year in that case of Measure H. I didn't felt that that was warranted for us to spend that kind of money on this if we could work out a settlement that addressed our needs and avoided our worst case scenario. So I support this. I think this is the best outcome we can get to. The council spent a lot of effort on it. Our mayor and Councilmember Kendall spent a lot of time on this as well. And I think it's time to sort of put this one to bed so we can focus on the 66 elements that comprise the housing element and get back to doing what we wanted to do back when we approved this in December of 2024.
Any other comments? Okay, well, let me just thank everyone. I'm going to do this in two stages, before motion and after motion. Before motion, I want to thank everyone who worked so long on the housing element, everyone who contributed to that effort. A lot of work, as you said, went into adopting the housing element. And I thought we had a good housing element. We were very happy where we were. I was very disappointed that HAC sued us to readapt a statement from an earlier time. Basically, they sued the wrong city, but they did. So I'll entertain a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the settlement agreement.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. And now I want to thank BBK, city staff, planning department. Incredible amount of work went into doing this. And, you know, part of this, you sued the wrong city. So much work went into this that we haven't been able to do what we should be doing in terms of planning for housing. I mean, it's just really a shame how much effort has been taken up by this over the last year. So it was not helpful. I don't think it's brought us to any better place. So, but hopefully now it's over. Okay, so again, thank you, Mala. Thank you to the team at BBK. And Greg, thank you to you and your department. Okay, we're on to item 12B, update on objective design standards.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Good to see you again. So this item is actually closely related to the one you just heard in that the HAC lawsuit influences your decision on the item I'm about to present. So I'm here with a request for direction on the timing of the adoption process for the objective standards document phase 2. As you know, phase one continues to be in place and be applied to incoming projects. Staff continues to work with Lisa Wise Consulting to refine the most recent draft of the ODS phase two document in preparation for the adoption process. However, there are certain aspects of the document, sections of the document pertaining to specifically to building massing, surface and structured parking, publicly accessible open space, and common open space, which may be considered to reduce the intensity of land use and would therefore need to comply with the no net loss requirement of state law. The city would either need to remove these provisions from the ODS document or wait until there is a concurrent upzone as discussed to ensure that there is no net loss in residential capacity. As just discussed, the city is in the process of settling this lawsuit as voted and will be considering revising its zoning ordinance to allow for more density in certain areas of the downtown. Apologies for the wrong tense here. This was written before the decision. So if the council considers the upzoning at the same time that the sections of the ODS that could reduce intensity are also considered, it would comply with the no net loss requirements and can be adopted, as the total number of units and density of certain areas in Lafayette would both be increased. Given that certain sections of the ODS cannot be adopted until the time of rezoning is considered, which is tentatively scheduled for this fall, if the settlement is approved, the council has a choice as to how to move forward with the remainder of the phase two document. Option one is to wait and adopt all of the phase two document at once, concurrent with settling of the zoning or the upzoning. And so the document would not come online until that decision, likely this fall, and phase one would continue to be in place. Or option two, the bifurcation option, where phase two would be adopted in 2 phases. This would be an adoption of all of the complying sections as soon as possible. And the 5 sections mentioned would be delayed until the upzoning took place and could be adopted concurrently. So if the council chooses option one, staff will simply wait until the upzoning occurs and then bring the entire document together. And if council chooses option two, staff will bring the majority of the document as soon as it's able. It will go through a planning commission and then council review, and then bring again the other sections of the document when available with the rezoning. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Nope.
Just real quick, Mr. Hudson brought up 2 pieces. Are those something with the window size and then also the flat roofs? Have those changed since that review that we had?
So the council last reviewed the document in January, and since then the DRC working group and the council liaisons did review the document. I don't have it in front of me. I can look it up if you like.
No, it's okay. I was just wondering if you
Some
did.
changes have been made to the document. The council is able to review that again with the approval process.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, any other questions? Is there any public comment?
Yes. I have 1 speaker slip for persons in the Don Tatson Community Hall, and I have no hands raised in our virtual audience, and our speaker is Elliot Hudson.
All right. The hat trick.
I know, right?
Yeah. These standards have taken way too long to get in place. I mean, they've taken years too long to write the right standards. Every day that goes by without them, we have buildings that are submitted that go up and they're wrong, and those buildings will never come down in our lifetime. We should do what we can as fast as we can. So I support bifurcation, and hopefully by the time you actually get the sections of the design standards that don't need to wait for rezoning, they will have fixed the 3 flaws that I outlined earlier. None of those affect the density, and they could all be fixed in this first draft. So please, again, do what you can as fast as you can.
Okay, thank you.
And I do have a hand raised in our virtual audience, and Rob Lavoie, do you want to speak? Your hand went up and down.
Hello, gentlemen and ladies. I was just gonna cede some time to Elliot because he's the expert on this, but since he seems to be done, I'm gonna just close my comments. I just
Okay.
support the bifurcation option. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other?
No additional
Okay,
comments.
so we'll close public comment, bring it back to the council. Does anyone want to make a case for recommendation number 1? Are we all in favor of recommendation 2? Okay. You have your guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that brings us to 13A. Joanne Robbins, City Clerk, resolution adopting a policy on the disruption of telephonic or internet service during city council meetings.
Before you is Resolution 2026-26 to adopt a policy for disruption of telephonic or internet service during city council meetings. This is an update to the Brown Act, compliant with SB 707. I'm sure you've read the staff report. Do you have any questions for me? We will continue to do what we've always done. A lot of cities have stopped their virtual option, but we have not. So there's really no change for us. There will be a change in the back room, the IT staff in the back. If we lose internet service, they will have to notify me, which in turn I will notify you, and we will stop the meeting. And we must try for at least an hour to get our internet service back. And when we do, we'll notify the public. We'll allow people a few moments to get back on with us, and we can continue our meeting. If after 1 hour, we cannot reestablish the internet service, it is up to us to decide to continue or to continue the items to a future meeting, but that is totally up to the council after that 1 hour has passed.
Okay, thank you very much for clarifying that. So if the internet goes out, we must spend at least an hour, according to this. But is that generally in the state law that you have
It
to
is
spend an
now.
hour? Okay.
It is now
Not
with
that
this
you-
SB 707
Okay,
compliance.
you can't
Yes.
make the decision earlier that
Nope.
it's in the public interest to
Nope.
proceed. Okay. All right, any other questions? Public comment?
I have no public comment.
Okay, well, thank you very much for putting this together. We have a motion for adoption of resolution 2026-26.
I'll move approval of resolution 2026-26.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, it's unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, department work plans for fiscal year 26-27. Our city manager and assistant city manager, floor is yours.
Thank you so much. In February 26th, the City Council conducted a special workshop to review progress on existing priorities and establish priorities for the upcoming fiscal year. And you had a comprehensive discussion and identified 3 multi-year priorities: wildfire prevention, preparedness, and responsiveness, the Mount Diablo corridor planning, and planning for the development and financing of the city's recreational needs. To ensure alignment with these priorities, the city's management team held a workshop in March, during which each department identified projects, tasks, challenges, and cross-functional needs for the next 1 to 2 years. These departmental work plans served as the foundation for the development of the fiscal year 26-27 draft budget. The attached work plans, what's before you, reflect a balanced approach that supports Council's priorities while continuing to deliver the essential services that our community expects. City staff devotes the majority of their time to core responsibilities, including public safety, infrastructure maintenance, long-range planning, regulatory compliance, financial management, and responding to community needs and unforeseen events. The work plans also incorporate state-mandated, sometimes unfunded activities and projects carried forward from prior years, and all of these tasks are funded either through the general fund, grants, or other designated sources. We recommend approval of the work plans as presented with a mid-year review in January to assess progress and make any necessary adjustments in conjunction with the adoption of the final budget. We're available to answer questions. You have 4 department heads here as well, should you have specific questions.
Okay, we'll do questions and public comments and then come back for comment. Are there any questions?
I have one, and by the way, thank you for spending time with me to go through all the details. I'm sparing the council some of the nits or my particular questions, but there's some of these items that are contingent on other sources. I'm thinking specifically in the wildfire. Thanks to Senator Grayson, he's put forward a package to secure funds out of the state budget to help us with traffic management boxes, evacuation being a key issue for us. And fingers crossed that he's successful, but the state budget won't be, I think June 15th is the day for the budget, but it's often enacted through trailer bills which stagger out over the summer. So we may not know by the time of our next meeting what the status of that is. So it's important. Would we still, let's say that Senator Grace is not able to prevail. I gather at some point later on, maybe in the mid-year budget revision, we could take that on or consider the matter. Is that?
That is correct. You can consider it at any time during the fiscal year. So if we find out, say in July, that we do not have the money for the projects that were identified in Senator Grayson's list, we can come back to you for a discussion about budgets.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, public comment.
Yes, I have public comments. Oh, well, this is budget though. So no,
Let's hold.
that'll be later. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so no public comment. We'll bring it back to the council. What we're looking for today, as opposed to waiting till the next meeting, is approval of the work plans.
Yes,
I don't see any reason why not
correct.
doing it tonight. So have a motion for approval, or is there any comment?
So I'm happy to make the motion.
Okay, there's a motion.
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and thank you
Yes.
for all the work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
City manager, our city manager, each of our department heads, a lot went into this, and there's a lot that's going to be in the next item. So thank you very much for all that work. So on to the next item, which is the budget. And so everyone's aware, we will be discussing items in the budget, but we will not be adopting the budget, and we will not be confirming the city's investment policy. We'll be doing all of that at the June 26th meeting. Okay, so Tracy, do you want to start with the report?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The proposed budget for the coming year is overall a good news budget, but it is not a blank check budget. Lafayette is entering the year in a strong financial position. Measure H is performing better than we originally expected. Our core revenues remain stable, and the city's 5-year forecast shows balanced budgets with reserves above the council's 60% minimum through fiscal year 2031. And that is a much stronger position than we were in not long ago. At the same time, the main message of this budget is caution and discipline. The proposed budget largely maintains existing services and continues work on the council's adopted priorities, which are wildfire preparedness, the Monte Diablo Boulevard corridor planning effort, and long-term planning for the city's recreation needs. It does not add a long list of new programs or expand city services beyond what we can sustain. A major focus of this budget is taking care of the assets that the community already owns and planning responsibly for assets that we will need in the future. The clearest example is the community center. The recent facilities assessment estimated that the existing community center could require more than $16 million in repair over the next 20 years. So historically, the city's been setting aside about $125,000 per year for that facility, but the assessment suggests that the real annual need would be closer to $625,000 and increasing over time. Now, while the council has not yet determined whether the best long-term solution is to renovate the existing community center, rebuild it, relocate it, or pursue some other option, the additional $500,000 contribution should not be understood as a commitment to invest that money into the current building. However, it is a prudent step to begin setting aside funds for the future, because whether we repair, rebuild, or purchase a new facility, significant capital funding will be necessary. This budget also keeps several important multi-year projects moving, including the Mount Diablo Corridor Study, housing element implementation, objective design standards, a comprehensive fee study, etc. It also includes continuing support for community events, and a compensation study to make sure the city has current objective information before the next round of labor negotiations. I would like to remind you that we are also starting phase 2 of the assessment study, and it is likely that those findings will require the city to set aside additional funds for future infrastructure repair and replacement. There are several budget requests for the council's consideration. $350,000 for a recreation master plan and needs assessment, $100,000 for a formal ADA transition plan, up to $250,000 in Measure H funds for additional fire safety projects, and $25,000 to support AARD. So the bottom line is this: Measure H and careful spending have put the city in a much better position, but the reserves above the 60% threshold should not be treated as surplus money available for new ideas unrelated to current priorities. The city has major known obligations ahead, as mentioned, and the responsible approach is to preserve our flexibility, stay focused on council priorities, and use today's fiscal strength to prepare for the costs that we know are coming. And I can take questions.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess my question would be, should we hear from Mr. Moran at this point? Okay, so Mike, could you discuss, this would be the crossing guard request. This is just so everyone is aware, in the last year's budget, the city allocated and spent $120,000 for crossing guards. This budget increases that amount by $44,000 to $164,000. And what I'd like Mike to do is just go through the process, the metrics that were looked at in coming to that recommendation.
And Mayor, before Mike delves into the technical aspect, just wanted to give you a background that last fall, I believe, the City Schools Subcommittee met. The subject of crossing guards has been a point of discussion with the school board as well as with the city. And at that time, city staff, Patrick Gollier, our transportation program manager, was charged with looking at the 11 crossing guard locations and applying technical and professional criteria to evaluate whether they met the test of being needed at that location. It has taken a while to gather data, and Patrick has worked very closely with the school district, particularly Brent Stevens, the superintendent, who's been a real partner in this. Brent has also shared the information with principals to get their input. And at the end, Patrick did evaluate using the criteria that Mike will explain today, prioritize the locations. And given that we had contributed $120,000 in the past, and given our own fiscal challenges, we were shooting for somewhere around that as a contribution to the program. An added issue was that we would be taking over the management of the program, since the school board had made the decision, given their own financial constraints, that they would no longer fund or manage the school bus program, school bus crossing guard program. So we had the list of locations. We did meet with the city schools subcommittee of the council. We did a further assessment, and what you see before you in the budget is what was being proposed. So just wanted to bring you up to speed before Mike explains the rationale.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so there were 11 existing crosswalk locations. One of those locations, Pleasant Hill Road at Spring Hill, has multiple crossing guards at the location. The proposal from the city would be to retain 2 of those. So we looked at retaining 7 possible locations, one of those being Pleasant Hill Road at Spring Hill, and having 2 guards at that. So really what you're looking at is preserving 8 crossing guards as opposed to 12, which we used to have when the school district and the city shared the expenses. So the criteria basically were to try and look at this objectively: crossing volumes, traffic speeds, the distances of the crossing, such as number of lanes, and other issues that are related to that, such as visibility. 5-year safety record, existing controls at the intersections. Does it have a signal? Does it have a stop sign? Is it a mid-block crossing? Does it have a flashing beacon crossing? Or is it just a crosswalk? And if it's a crosswalk, is it a ladder crosswalk or just 2-bar crosswalks? And all of ours are ladder crosswalks at all of these 11 locations, by the way. So, which rolls into some of the upgrades that we've made with the safety improvements near schools. I know most all of you are very familiar with those, but we did put $1.3 million into safety improvements near schools so that pretty much all of these locations have some of these improvements, even if it was just added paint and delineation. But most of these locations they're either at a traffic signal, they're at a controlled stop, or we've added flashing beacon crossings, as well as at Happy Valley School and at School Street, for example, we have speed humps along with flashing beacon crossings. So certainly the council has made an effort to protect our children coming, to and from schools. With that objective criteria, just trying to cut the number, we came up with the 7 locations. And the 4 locations that would be left out are First Street at Monroe, St. Mary's at Solana, and I'll mention on that one, that was an easier one to cut because there's a redundant crossing just east of it. That also has a flashing beacon and also has a crossing guard. And this one, even if you didn't have a crossing guard, does have a flashing beacon that we added. Spring Hill Road at San Release Court, the council heard testimony on please save that one earlier today, but just based on this objective criteria, it wouldn't have made the cut. Marywood at Indian Way. And mostly those are lower volumes, haven't had any issues at them in the past. You can look at any location subjectively and say you should save all these or not. But at some point, if you're having to go by a budget based on the objective criteria, that's how the other locations were chosen. So just for the public and to run through those are Moraga Road at Brook Street, St. Mary's Road at Ocampo Drive, School Street at Avalon, School Street at Paradise Court, Happy Valley Road at Panorama Drive, and First Street at School Street. So those would be the 7 locations proposed to include moving forward with the city doing 100% of the funding and 100% of the management of the program.
Questions?
Thank you. I do have questions. I wasn't on the subcommittee. I would love to hear from the subcommittee on this as well, but I just have a couple of questions. I remember when we were talking about this over the last couple of years, we had wondered, I mean, one of my concerns was when we had the equal funding for from the two organizations, the school district and the city council, then who was really making sure we got the best bang for our buck, right? Where we actually, it seems expensive on the surface for what we're getting. I'm just going to say it seems expensive. And so was that part of have we done that analysis yet to really make sure that we're really getting the best value for our dollar? Or did you really just kind of more stack rank the intersections or areas and just kind of using the rubric made an arbitrary cutoff?
I would say we did more of the rubric arbitrary cutoff. I can tell you, we have done some research on, for example, can you have parent volunteers be crossing guards? And really the answer is no. You can have them be something else, but they can't be out there with a stop paddle. They need training, they need insurance, and part of what is so expensive about a crossing guard program is you're going through a company that has that training, has them in their vests, has them with the right stop paddles, has, when they call in sick, a replacement theoretically. So you're paying for a service as well as just an hourly rate to a person that's splitting their day and working very few hours in the day. So it's very similar to the school bus program, where it's very expensive. So you try and utilize it as best you can, but it is, if you look at it on the surface, it's a lot of money.
Right. So I guess to say the question again, do we believe it's the best we can do? Are there other services that we can do? Because I'm just wondering about the quality versus quantity, if we can.
I don't know that we could cut that rate,
Okay.
but we have not shopped that yet.
Right, because I'm just thinking, I think there's one, and we're going to talk about joint funding or not, but the one advantage of having a single group that can manage this is it's easier to hold accountable and to ensure we get the best value for our dollar. So I just don't know if that's, again, but I take your point. So just to be clear, also, you're saying, so parent volunteers are not an option because of insurance requirement, I was in 5th grade traffic patrol myself growing up.
Right.
Is that not an option anymore?
Burton Valley had that, I don't know, 7 years ago. But it's disbanded. I don't know what happened to it. Now we're talking about 5th graders that are afraid to go to school, yet 5th graders used to be the guards at Roar and Marywood 7 years ago. So I can't go into that, but those are things that have happened in the past and they have worked.
But it's your understanding right now, the only option is paid, insured adult employees.
To be actual crossing guards per the MUTCD recommendations manual of uniform traffic control devices. So,
all right, thank you.
And I think it's probably more about liability and insurance. The training and apparel and so forth is just the detail.
Great, thank you. I have other questions about the budget generally, but maybe I don't know if you want to do it just on this part first. How do you want to?
Yeah, it's all Mike. Questions for Mike?
Sure. If hypothetically we were going to add 2 more back in, what was the swag on the cost? It's about $20,000 per guard.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Mike, one thing that I remember seeing in the data, which would be helpful, I guess, if the whole council could get access to it, but it was First and Monroe actually had the largest number of crossings, and it also was ranked highly by the principal of LES.
Let me speak to that, because that number's not accurate. When it was reevaluated, that is not it had the highest crossings, but that's just not true. And it's not, we've relooked at it.
Based on just the morning observation?
Yeah,
That was
no.
only of elementary school traffic, not of the high school or middle school.
So I think I actually have the numbers here, because it had it at like 487 or something. And I don't know how those numbers were obtained the first time. They were actually shared with us by the school, and we know they were not accurate. There are not near that many crossings. For example, the highest location of crossings is likely at School Street at Paradise Court. That's the most in any of the either morning or afternoon school drop off or pickup. So that was reevaluated, and Patrick did actually go out and do some evaluation and do another further write-up. That, again, subjectivity, I'm not going to say nobody crosses there. Certainly kids do. And more of those kids cross there with their parents, by the way, because they're mostly going to the elementary school. If they were going to the middle school, they're probably going to stay on that 10-foot wide path on First Street and not need to cross First Street.
But they cross Monroe. And
They would
that's-
cross Monroe,
that's where the
yes,
cars
but that is a controlled stop.
Well, right, but so is the crossing at First Street as well.
Correct.
They're all.
But yeah, it's those are both controlled.
Yeah.
Right.
My understanding was that Patrick went out on a Wednesday morning and he was able to observe just the LES traffic, the pedestrian traffic, because it's a different time that they start. Stanley-
Correct. He was trying to isolate
Late.
the elementary school at
So-
that point.
Right, so his numbers are elementary school only, but then there's a Stanley component. And I think the thing that we've seen is that there are a lot of them because they're doing what we want. They're doing the remote drop off at the
Yes.
library, like here,
Right.
there. And then they're using the 10-foot wide path. What I've read in some of the public comment and heard is that some of the kids on bikes go very fast. And so it's a bit of a dangerous situation with the traffic on Monroe because it's coming out and turning left to go on to First Street. And the guard essentially is the traffic controller in that situation. So I guess I had seen this number of 413 or whatever in the spreadsheet, and I know Patrick was going out to look at it. My understanding was that he did, but that he only saw the elementary school portion. So we really don't have a good count, a recount of the
So-
total.
We would have to do a recount during school. Obviously, we're in summer break. And again, so there's a subjectivity story and some knowledge that would give you reason to maybe want to also include that, or to maybe include that instead of something else. But just looking at them objectively, and by the way, Monroe didn't make the cut even when it had the highest number of crossings. Like it was just thrown into the matrix. It still was in the bottom. So, but there are other reasons to maybe include it. So, and that's really, we tried to give it to it just by the numbers, not by the heartstrings.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a lot of comments about the Spring Hill and Seminole East Court. Do you have any numbers that indicate, or numbers you can share with us, that indicate why that was put on the list to be discontinued?
So the San Release Court did have lower crossing volumes. It had
And what is?
lower
just in a
traffic
sense, I
volume,
mean, how many kids does that mean?
26.
26 kids a day? Or each?
No,
each-
at each time. So
Each
this
time,
this
yeah.
was the peak time. We call it the peak hour. And we looked at the student crossing and then also the volume of traffic, and whichever one spiked the highest, whether it was morning or afternoon or 8:30 to 9:30 or 8 to 9 or whatever it was, we were going with the highest hour we could find,
Okay.
which would
so-
certainly include the entire, commute to or from school.
Okay.
So volumes were 192 was its peak.
Wait, 192?
192 vehicles.
Okay.
That was the highest. The speed, the 85th percentile was 26 in a 25 mile per hour zone. And it's a shorter distance to cross, 2 lanes. Most of them were 2 lanes, but a few of them are 4.
Can I do a quick follow-up? Something along those lines
Sure.
there?
Go ahead.
Well, with the testimony we heard earlier, there was just a mention that the observation happened on some sort of cloudy, rainy day and it wasn't representative. Are these observations, was it just a one?
No,
observation,
no.
like it's over time, or how's this?
These are more streetlight data driven.
Okay.
And the Monroe we were talking about was a separate visit.
Okay.
To kind of question.
So you're pretty confident in the numbers then, as far as,
Certainly in comparison of one to the other, yes.
Okay. Do factors such as the, facing into the sun in the morning in the evening? Does that taken into consideration?
It wasn't for this. This is just strictly the data. Obviously, sunlight can affect a driver considerably, right?
Mike, was turning movements at an intersection part of the analysis? So in other words, people are not just going straight, but they're making left turns or right turns?
No, but they'd be picked up as going through the crosswalk, right? Whether it was either side, if it's a two-way,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
but they were not isolated out.
Okay. Any other questions for Mike?
The final one, I guess, is, are we going to get a formal staff report on this? I mean, this is great. I really appreciate the context on this, but you know, there are a lot of numbers and I can't really keep it all.
We would be happy to prepare a staff report for your next meeting.
Right. Just like, I think it's obviously important. Intense community interest would put it mildly. And so I think for us to have data to make decisions is super helpful.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mike. Okay. So now back to questions for Tracy. Any other questions?
Are we, I'm sorry, are we continuing with this particular topic? Or are we?
No,
moving on?
we're on the budget.
Right.
And so any question on the budget for Tracy? So what we'll do, we'll have questions from council members, then we'll have public comment, and then we'll come back and we'll have a general discussion. And then what I want to do is start first with the items that are on page 3 under budget changes. And I'm just going to ask, is there anything under budget changes that anyone wants to discuss? Because those are already reflected in the numbers. And then we get finished with that, we're going to go to budget requests. And we now have, well, there's 4 budget requests, and we're going to discuss each of those. We may or may not make a decision during this meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're further questions for Tracy.
I do have.
Yep.
All right. Great. Thank you. All right. So Tracy, I guess a couple of questions, just specifics. One's just my own, okay, well, 2 on kind of law enforcement. On page 65, when we look at the sheriff's, our kind of contractual number, that on police services, even though obviously I appreciate everything that Chief Williams is doing with the police, but our number 862, our contract sheriff services has a pretty significant, a 30% increase. Or am I misreading that?
Well, it's an anomaly because I believe that I mentioned in the manager's memo, we actually had police services in 3 different places.
Right.
We had 2 programs within the general fund, but we also had 2 officers budgeted in, can't remember the fund name, but it was supplemental law enforcement, and that was outside of the general fund. And that's an artifact from long ago. We get COPS money from the federal government, and I believe at the time it was set up, we kept it in a separate fund to show that we were in fact funding 2 officers with that money. There is no longer a need to do that. So rather, I moved all of the police services into now one program so that we can see actually what the cost of police officers together are. So what you're seeing there is we used to only be showing the ones that were charged to the general fund.
Right.
So I moved the ones that were outside into the general fund. It's really the same amount of money because I was transferring money from the general fund to the other fund. So it looks like it's an increase, but it's actually,
Right. When that was there's 675,000 I saw was moved in. It just feels like the increase was 1.7 million. So you're saying that's both? I mean, I guess maybe that's okay. That's I guess I knew we were consolidating 675,000. I didn't realize there was more. So from an apples to apples comparison, is there any significant increase in how much we're charging? How much we're
yeah, they're not by that much. Let me just look in police services. Let's see. Yeah, so most of that came from the officers, and it was not, that was, let's see, how much was it? Yeah. So it wasn't a huge increase in the number for officers themselves.
Right.
We had some big increases in services and supplies. And that's numbers charged from the sheriff's office.
So that's
for
bundled
the-
into this number? then
Yes,
It's all one
what's
number?
separated at the bottom of the page, in
Right.
210, you'll see that, only a couple of years ago, it was like under $20,000, and this year it's 133. So again, that's for everybody. So I moved
Right.
everybody in here, but we are paying significantly more because of the technology, the body cams, the vehicle cams, the data processing. So, but that's a pretty significant amount.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Next, back to crossing guards, but more in your bailiwick than Mike Moran. So I see, I guess it's on page 71. We have our new crossing guard fund, which is higher now. It's only the contractual number, but we're taking over management as well, right? I mean, isn't there staff time required to manage this, and shouldn't that be accounted for here? Because I think that's not trivial to deal with everything that's happened with this.
Vice Mayor McCormick, there are two aspects to the management of the crossing guard program. One is really paying the bills, reviewing invoices, and that is something that actually Tracy is going to be doing. And the other is what happens on a day-to-day basis if somebody doesn't show up. We've spoken with the superintendent and asked that each school be responsible for that aspect of the management, because we're sitting at the city offices, we have absolutely no idea or control over what goes on. They have agreed to that verbally. We also spoke to the vendor to indicate the same thing. While we would like to be copied on the correspondence, we will, as we take this on, we will not be handling the day-to-day management of the program.
So that's the schools will still do that?
It's the schools, the superintendent's office, and each individual school will be doing that. And in speaking to the superintendent and his colleague, we were told that currently it's operating quite smoothly, that they do replace an absent crossing guard with another. They are still informed. If there is no crossing guard at a location, they're told that as well. That's a function that the city really cannot take on because we are so far removed from it. So we are going into this with the understanding that that aspect of the program will be managed, continue to be the school's responsibility.
Okay, it wouldn't surprise, I guess, that's fair. I guess I'm just supposing it's going to take more time than, I mean, this feels like it's a dynamic program. If there's live interaction with schools and the community and everything like that, it could take somebody's time, maybe it's to be buried in the budget. But I'll accept that. Sorry, I'm almost done with this part. It's just observational. On page 33, we talk about the parking meter revenue we have is going to be up almost 8% higher. Why would parking meter revenue be higher? We're not installing new parking meters or changing the rates. Wouldn't that be flat? It's a small thing, but I was just kind of like,
Sure.
It is page 33. Yeah, I guess 30, right, 33 overall with the PDF, but
Okay, let's see what I did. So I'm sorry, which parking meters?
it is line 631.2. I was just kind of wondering why we expect to get more revenue because
Well, we got lower. Okay, so if you look back in 24, 25, we got $374,000. And it actually went down a little bit, so I'm just bringing it slightly back up to 350.
okay, so it's just higher utilization of existing.
Correct, and
okay.
I think that we're bearing that out. Yes, I don't know why it dipped so much, but then it.
No, I don't know. I don't know either. Actually,
pushing
it
it
feels like
back
everything
up
is about the
again.
same, but
Yes.
okay, great, thank you.
This actually is probably for Jonathan, is the $350,000 for the community center study. What does that cover? Thank you.
the other way. So that's numbers based on reaching out to other local park and rec directors regarding similar studies that typically had a needs assessment and an update to plans. Some of the other cities did multiple needs assessments. This may actually have an architectural component as well. Because we're looking at the community center. So as I looked at a number of the other communities, including Moraga, that has a meeting tonight where they're reaching out to the community and doing some of that output, that outreach. Theirs was about 350 and involves an update, comprehensive update to their facilities plan as well.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we'll open it for public comment on any aspect of the budget.
The mayor and council members are taking comments on the budget item 14A. I have about 5 speaker slips in-house and I have no hands raised yet. I have 1 hand raised in our virtual audience, and we'll start with Rob Sturm.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not trying to compete with Colin Elliott. This will be my last set of comments. And so I come here wearing multiple hats. I think first off, although I believe our board president is also going to present, I'm here in a representative capacity on behalf of the board because I believe that we collectively want to express our gratitude to the city council and staff and everyone who is involved in bringing forward a path for the city to assume responsibility for the school crossing guard program. It is greatly appreciated by our board. On a more personal and individual note, I also wanted to make sure that I was here because you have heard me speak on this issue many, many times. And I acknowledge that my advocacy at times was passionate and perhaps frustrating to some. And I simply hope that you also appreciate that it always came from a place of concern for the district's fiscal, as the district's fiscal stewards, and what I ardently believed was the appropriate alignment of responsibility and accountability. And so we may have in the past agreed to disagree, but I believe and hope that that was done with an understanding of the intent behind it. I particularly appreciate the city's willingness to apply its expertise. We heard that, and very impressive, and expertise that we, the district, lack, and determine operational needs and ensure that resources are deployed where they have the greatest impact on safety. I appreciate the time and attentiveness and thoughtfulness that the collective group has brought to the process, and recognize that you, much like our school district, are also doing the very best that you can to appropriately prioritize public safety and support managing risks within the realities that you lack a crystal ball and unlimited funds. I applaud the work that you have done to date. The relationship between the city and the school district is one of the most important partnerships in Lafayette. We serve the same families, we serve the same neighborhoods, and the same future and desire for a happy, healthy, and vibrant community. Those goals were recently affirmed by our community with the strong results on the Measure H parcel tax. Maybe the solution is every act should be Measure H. That seems to be a lucky letter. And I want to extend special thanks to the City Council and so many of our community members for your advocacy, partnership, and commitment to Lafayette students and families. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Eden Hall, to be followed by Grace Dixon.
This is still on, right? Yeah, great. So I want to express that we are on the cusp of a great opportunity. When you look at this room, mostly we are volunteer council or paid staff. Could you imagine being able to communicate to 110 of your residents every day? That's what, collaborating with ARD in this downtown space would afford. The value of the research, not to mention the service, of course, the service of all ages recreation, but we rely upon our public for advocacy, support, voting for measures, engagement. So look at that opportunity and put a value on that. I'd also like to discuss that 20% of our general fund is sales tax. So to use a 2019 Vistas that I still have around the house, 3.3 million sales tax went into the general fund in 2019. If having a downtown space made that 3.3 million 1% better every year, that would be 33,000. The general rule of thumb is a 4-to-1 to 40-to-1 return on investment. What if it was just 1%? 33,000. What we are suggesting is not a support of ARD. ARD supports the city. Many think we are the city because we provide a service, and we do it because it doesn't exist yet. We do it to great expense and effort. We are 100% volunteer. And what we are proposing is that there is a commensurate investment in downtown recreation that complies or meets the 20% sales tax general fund contribution. Right now, when one looks at the 20-year capital funding need, less than 1% is slated for downtown. Less than 1% of the 20-year capital funding need. Not even near 20% of the general fund where those sales taxes come from. We're just asking for a little bit of service and engagement with the public. Just in our first month and a half of 33 days open, we're averaging 110. Could you imagine 32 35-foot-long walls, 10.5 feet high? You want to give me some of your time? 10.5 feet tall, full of information about what the city is trying to accomplish with all of the programs. I didn't even include the recreation parks facilities master plan. I didn't even include that in the letter. Can you imagine that huge 10-foot by, 15-foot long front window communicating what the city wants to do? People are coming to our downtown, and we have this tremendous opportunity to engage, communicate, and also make a little bit more general fund money along the way. Anything to add?
Okay, thank you. Are there questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Council. Just here to thank you for your partnership on 3 things. One, on supporting Measure H, which we're so grateful. It looks like that's been resoundingly supported by our community. Second, I just got off a webinar that Jonathan was on. You're incredible partners with our after-school care needs right now. We're really happy to be able to deliver some good news to our families. And third, for the crossing guards, thank you for your flexibility, partnership, and expertise in this area. I really appreciate the data-driven approach, and I know that safety is a priority for you. So thank you on all 3.
Thank you. Are there questions? Okay.
That concludes speakers in the community hall, and I have one speaker in our virtual audience, Rob Lavoie.
I had a question. I wasn't quite sure if I heard Tracy correctly that the current or the current, what we're paying for the crossing guards is 120,000 and the proposal is for 220. So if she could clarify that. And also if someone could remind us of the history of the city partnership with the schools, because it seems like the schools used to pay all of it. And then maybe a few years ago, they came to the city and asked for help. And seems like the city was paying maybe all of it and then went down to half of it most recently. So maybe somebody can clarify that. But my thinking is the school passed a substantial increase in the temporary partial tax, went from 290 to 575, I believe. And would this have been something that was requested to be paid by the city if they had known that they were going to have the additional income from the parcel tax that just passed? So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That ends Mr. Lavoie's comment. And now I'll turn to Ms. Robinson to respond, or Ms. Ravatsa.
I'll respond to the numbers. So the number in the budget currently is 160,000 to fully fund all of the crossing guards would be about 245,000. Last year we paid 120. And we have 160,000 in the budget, 164. And you can talk about
the benefits of being here for a long time. But recall when we had 2 crossing guards, a couple on Spring Hill Road and maybe Moraga Road, and the city managed them and paid them. They were part-time. And then it grew, and I believe, I want to say the city managed the crossing guard program till the between 2010 and 2015, around that time, when it was transferred, the management was transferred to the school district. The city continued to pay 50%. It was at that time, I think each partner paid about 50,000, so the cap was around 100,000. More recently, around 2019-20, the school district approached us and said that the costs were coming in higher than 100,000, and therefore asked us to increase our contributions as well. And the city council said they would cap our contribution at $100,000. That happened for a couple of years, but the costs, as we know, continue to rise. And so fast forward to today, or last year, well, this current year, we paid 120,000. The budget shows 164,000 with a reduced number of crossing locations.
I'll just say that 3 years ago, the discussion was whether we go above the $100,000 cap, and we decided that, yes, we would on a one-time basis. Here we are. Okay, any other public comments? Okay, so would anyone like to take the 9 o'clock break at 9:10? Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break and we'll be back at 9:15. Okay, it's 9:19. We're back in session. What we'll do now is just have a general discussion and comments, or you can talk about something specific. But then at some point, I would like to go to page 3 and again, just ask if there's anything in that section that someone wants to discuss. We'll discuss that item and then we'll go one by one through the budget requests that start on page 5. So open now for general comments or observations. So nobody's jumping in. I'll jump in. I just want to say, last year we set for this fiscal year, one of our priorities was basically just to, I won't say get our fiscal house in order, but just to see where we are financially. And there was 3 things that we said we would do. And we're coming to the end of this fiscal year now, and we've got new goals for the next fiscal year. But for this fiscal year, under the financial goal, number 1, we said that we would provide the services provided for in the 2025-26 budget. We had approved at the time of the 2024 sales tax vote, and that we would not add additional services. And we have provided those services. We've hired to be able to do it, and we have not added additional services. Second, we said we would see how much the half-cent sales tax actually brought in. And now after a full year, we know. And I think it's fair to say we're happy. It's been very good news about what's come in. And then third, we said we would carry out an assessment to see if we were putting aside enough in our sinking funds to be able to repair or replace our existing assets over a 20-year period. And we did that, and we found out we weren't putting enough in. And lo and behold, the difference between the additional sales tax that we didn't expect almost exactly matched what we needed to add to the sinking funds, basically another $1 million. So moving on to another general observation, while Measure H has put us in a much better position than we would have been in, we still are in, I think, a very precarious financial situation because we have this large, important asset, the community center, that we need to figure out what we're going to do with it. We have our 3M project looking at what we might need to do to reimagine the downtown. We were going to go through that process, and we've allocated the money to do the process, but we don't have any money to carry out any of the solutions that may be identified. So that's an issue. And then back to the recreation front, in addition to the community center, we know that we don't have enough recreational facilities. So somehow we have to figure out what we're going to do about that. And that situation is only going to get more difficult as we add more housing. So I'm grateful, very grateful, that the citizens passed our Measure H. I'm incredibly grateful that the citizens passed the school's Measure H, because that's basically the heart of the community. So that's fantastic. But we still have a long way to go. There's a lot we need to do and plan for in order to be where we want to be. Okay. Other comments before we go specifically?
Yeah, I just want to note for the record that I no longer serve on the AARD board.
Okay, thank you.
If I could maybe echo your comments, Mayor Anduri, we're in a good place financially. It's all because of our Measure H. This would be a really different set of conversations had the voters not approved that when they did in 24. And you read news accounts across the country of cities struggling to make budgets meet. Reading the Boston Globe the other day, it's the same thing in Massachusetts as in many communities in California. And thank God for Measure H for the school district as well, because schools are dealing with issues across the board too. So there's a lot of gratitude to the voters for putting us in the place we're in. I really have to salute staff, and I spent time with the Rupert Tracy on this, going through all this. I think that staff has taken the priorities that we set as a council back in January. And I think we've done, there's a nice through line that I could see in this budget to what we had approved as our priorities. And I think the staff has done a good job of translating the 20,000 or 30,000 foot view down to the grass, to the treetops. And I could see it in this. I am also very conscious of these like looming capital question marks that we've got. And I think the mayor walked through that really well. So I'm cautious on this. I know we'll talk about the crossing guards in the bid. I've got sort of mixed feelings and all that. But, you know, I think that overall, I think the staff has done a great job in putting all these pieces together to sort of implement the discussion we had back early this year. So thank you for that effort.
Okay, so we're on page 3 of the staff report. Under budget changes, are there any items aside from crossing guards that anyone wants to discuss? Again, these amounts are in the budget now. Did anyone want to revisit any of those items? Okay, crossing guards. We need to discuss whether we agree with what's here or if anyone wants to take a different approach to crossing guards.
I think we're all in favor of crossing guards and doing, I think we want the best bang for our buck for it. I personally would like to see the staff report so I can look at it before really making, I just don't feel like I can make a good decision whether this is enough. I'm sure it's not. Do be smaller than this, whether it should be this or more, without seeing kind of the data. I'd love to, again, you guys have been in education subcommittee, have been in like all the meetings. I mean, I'd like to get your opinions on it, but I'm not really ready to decide, which might be frustrating people, but until we actually get the staff report so I can actually look at the analysis and how it was put together. But happy to talk about it. I just can't, I don't know what the number should be at this point.
Yeah, I understand that. I wish we did have that data and a report that got into the details that we heard Director Mike talk about. I will not be at the next meeting nor the one after it. And so that's a concern to me because I have some perspective on the program and they ask and the recommendation. And so I guess not sure if I should just take this opportunity now to make a case and my particular position. So I think that we should try to find a way to add First and Monroe back and Spring Hill and Release. So to go to 10 positions at 9 locations. That's an additional 40,000 roughly to the amount that's in our report right now. And the reasons, well, I mean, we all do want safer roads, but we have a Vision Zero policy that we adopted. And we want to encourage more walking and biking to school. We want to get cars off the road. We're building more facilities at pretty great cost to enable walking and biking to school, like the School Street Pathway is the biggest one. And there's always a risk, even when we build these more protected pathways, of intersections. That's where, you know, the cross traffic is. That's what the crossing guards protect. They protect the kids at intersections. We have a circular problem where we want kids to bike and walk to school, but if they don't feel it's safe because there are a lot of cars, then the parents are going to drive them to school. And so we end up just not really being able to crack that nut. I think crossing guards help in incentivizing and making parents and kids feel safer walking to school. The guards discourage unsafe driver behavior because they're a human, an adult with an authority, you know, of a stop sign paddle and a vest. And so I think that adult drivers are probably more likely to be on better behavior. And, you know, really the other thing that guards do is they perform traffic control. They basically hold a bunch of kids so that there's a group that builds up, let the cars through, stop the cars, get the kids to go through. And they're doing both of those things to the cars and to the kids. And I mean, if we could put in a traffic signal at a lot of these locations, which I don't think we can because there isn't a warrant for it, but if we had to, it would be $1 million per signal. That's like 50 years of a crossing guard at those posts. So again, we can't put signals in a lot of those spots, but just to give, you know, a relative scale of the value. So, another reason to maintain the program level is, or at least close to it, I mean, I'm proposing dropping 2 positions, but keeping 10, is that the Safety Around Schools report that we had commissioned from Tool Design, in the document, it says continue crossing guard cost sharing program, which I interpret to be continue your crossing guard program however you can, however, whatever the means. And this is a hard one, but on September 8th, 2021, Ashley Diaz pushed children out of the way. And those kids who were 8th graders on that day thankfully graduated Acalanes 11 days ago. I mean, that's significant. And, further, Measure H, I agree completely with Councilmember Cervantes. I co-chaired that campaign, felt very strongly about it, and was aware that it was critical to maintain our city's services. But in our own campaign materials, and this is actually just the city document about the measure, it says, how will the money be spent? Ensuring traffic safety on our streets and pathways for all users, including those driving, biking, walking. So, I know that we have in this report a $250K to emergency preparedness for wildfire safety, which I completely support, but the rationale is the same, that, hey, Measure H is coming in a little bit more. And so this is something that that's worth doing because of that. I feel the same way about the crossing guards, even though I do think they are an existing program. I think it's kind of a fine line. Are they existing, or is this now increasing the program in some ways? I mean, inflation could have increased the program cost, and we would still be paying more, but it's an existing program. Totally understand the fiscal challenge. The revenue cost has risen dramatically since I was a parent advocate in this room in 2019 with, I think, Rob Sturm, and I think Kenny Tuckerman was here at that time. And I was asking the city to resume that 50-50 cost share arrangement, because at that point, I think that the information about the cost increases hadn't been passed on to the city. So it was a request to kind of, let's go back to 50-50. But the cost at that time of the contract was $180,000, and now it's $240-something thousand. So there's no doubt that this has experienced huge inflation and price increase, and I don't think that we can expect that it won't continue, given that it's completely human labor, and insurance and all that liability insurance goes up all the time. So, I know it's not tenable and that we need to look for alternatives. I fully appreciate $1.3 million that the city put in for the Safety Around Schools improvements. I've been advocating since my kid was at Spring Hill Elementary a very long time ago in 2014. And I think that those improvements are important, they're necessary, they're critical, but I don't think we can rely solely on them at pickup drop-off time when there's that crush of cars and people, bicycles, walking, pedestrians. And given that those crossing guards act as traffic control. So a way to eliminate the need for some crossing guards, not necessarily all, but some, is to restrict vehicular traffic. And that's kind of a pretty bold proposal, but if we were to not have cars on School Street and on First Street for that point in time, the pickup and drop off time, we could probably take 3 crossing guards out of the mix. I mean, it's not possible to do that at every location. We can't do that at Pleasant Hill Road, at Happy Valley Road. And it would need a really robust traffic analysis to see just what would the consequences for mobility be in the surrounding area. So I'm not, saying, oh, let's just do that. That's our solution. But really that we need to think creatively about this and analytically. But I do think we need to maintain the protection at those 10 locations. I think I agree with Director Moran that Solana and St. Mary's is fairly redundant with a compo in St. Mary's. People can walk to the other and use it. As I understand, the Marywood was ranked lowly by the principal. And so they know their local conditions, so I trust them. But the other two, First and Monroe and Spring Hill and San Release, I think we need. So that is my presentation to you.
That's very good. I have a couple follow-up questions, or I want to add on to
Yeah,
that.
go ahead.
So you would kind of support the idea of Measure H funds because we've been very careful with how those are allocated. But you have your opinion that kind of crossing guards funding would fit within the scope of what we propose for Measure H?
I think so. I mean, yeah, I was just reading.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of,
Creative.
I'm reflecting on that because I think that's interesting because I think it does. It's an existing program to do. So I just maybe should put that just as a, we can put that in there. The other thing I really, it was great. It was a really great thing, but that is, so I'm constantly pushing on this cost thing. I feel I appreciate what the city manager said, but I'm actually kind of frustrated with our plan going forward with how we're going to manage the program. Of like, because we're not there, we're relying on the schools to kind of give us feedback. They don't have a stake in the game because they're not paying for it, and we're just going to have this indirect thing. Your thing, that's super creative thinking about how we get the best out of our money for the safety of the kids. And I am just really, that's one of my hesitation. I don't want to, it's like, we were paying 240 before, we're going to put 240 now, we're just going to let it ride with inflation. And boy, I'm sure it's doing well without really thinking about the best use of our money to have the safest for our kids. So just what you were saying, should we look at different kinds of traffic, shrinking traffic? That's a better way to save, money. We don't have to pay for traffic guards, plus it's safer for the kids. So I just would really hate to say we just turn on the full-time spigot and we just let it run for 10 years until whatever. I would love the idea of really looking at smartly. I just would like to have I think we just need active management. I don't want to have passive management, and I don't know, we don't have a choice given the circumstances, but I just love the idea of really kind of digging into it to see how we get the best bang for our buck, that for the safety of the kids and best value for the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, I would advocate for making a continuation for the next year, but also incorporating an analysis that's at that level of just what kind of radical change can we do, and would it help?
And also what renegotiating the contracts or whatever,
Yes.
all these things for sure. But we're kind of in a bind.
Oh, and
right.
I
For
totally appreciate the bind right now.
So,
Yeah.
I think all of these things definitely should happen. And I agree with Stella on the analysis of adding those other two. We pulled them off, to be honest, saying, okay, we're going to try to pull all four off and we'll kind of see what happens.
Okay.
And to see which ones the community are going to let us know what is going on. And they did, and that was great. And I was really glad that Linda showed up too. I didn't know, when she walked in the room, I go, wait, I know you. Where do I know you? Oh, I look at you like every day. And so I'm really glad that she's was able to report the conditions there. And it is an uncontrolled crosswalk. And it's two. She does the two streets, and it is well needed in that neighborhood. So
I guess it goes without saying that you definitely endorse the ones that were kept even under this current one. That you still agree that the 7 that they now said to keep, those are more important even than the 4 that were taken off. I mean, we didn't. I remember what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah, each of those have really high volumes and all the right conditions, and we will get the staff report. You'll see that justified in the analysis.
I'm assuming you
Yes.
guys were on it. I really wasn't worried. I'm just kind of
So Pleasant Hill Road scored number 1. I mean, obviously,
Not
right?
surprising.
It's
Oh
these
my
kind of
gosh.
things, right? So the analysis was
some were
sound,
just self-evident, huh?
right? The analysis was sound, and I do think that we do need to do the long-term study to figure out how better we can do it to cut the number of crossing guards if we can. If there's a way to do that, that'll be good. But we did get a lot more background. Lafayette, on the flip side, has more crossing guards than Walnut Creek. Yeah, mind blowing. So we definitely are a little bit concierge. And so if you look at it that way, right? I mean, but you hear from the community and they're really relying on it. So maybe we rethink this, but to rethink it so quickly right now, maybe we just do this as a work in progress.
I really appreciate this, and Councilmember Witherspoon is, admire the logic, and also, because I've been struggling with this one, my bent is to be more of a fiscal conservative, I think. But my instinct is to hold the line of the budget as best we can. And I said earlier, I kind of like referenced the Measure H, the city Measure H, and what that meant for our budget. But part of our duty is to sort of make sure we're mindful of that, where we honor the trust that the voters put in us. But when I was thinking about this, I kind of thought this is something which is sort of a Measure H item. I've been sort of thinking about that in my mind. And because a lot of it, this is transit. And so for me, my struggle was trying to be budget conscious, but by the same token, we're talking kids here. And if I'm going to err on any side, I'm going to err on the side of like trying to protect the kids who are trying to cross the road here. And I don't have a scientific perspective on this. I do drive down Spring Hill Road, and I don't know, you see a bunch of kids, walking there in the afternoons and in the mornings, getting to school or from school. You really want to protect that population. I think perhaps what Councilmember Witherspoon has suggested was something is a good approach to it, which is to sort of, instead of dropping 4, drop 2, but let's spend a lot of time to sort of figure out how do we best optimize this. I feel like I'm operating where I'm flying on instruments, but can't even see all the instruments. It's kind of like the view I've got on this right now. So I like the approach that you've offered.
Okay, well, one comment that you made is the school subcommittee, as you said, okay, we'll drop the 4 and we'll see what the reaction is. Is it fair to say that the community is accepting of doing away, well, not having a crossing guard at Marywood? Okay,
Yeah, we haven't heard any public comment on that.
all right. Okay, so what I'm hearing on this issue is that I don't think any of us feel comfortable making any decision until we can actually see the data. And so we've been told we'll have data for the next meeting. And I really appreciate all of your comments, and we will definitely keep those in mind during the next discussion. And we'll come back to this then on next week to talk about it. But I think where we're heading for next week is either to reinstate 2 or reinstate all 4, although I haven't heard that, but we haven't seen the data, so I want to leave that open. But again, and we say this each year, for this year only, not making any decisions for subsequent years, and with a commitment during the next year to look into whether we can renegotiate the contract, whether there's an approach that's better. But the only thing I would add to that is keeping in mind that the total amount involved here that we're talking about right now is $80,000. That is a lot of money, but a lot of staff time can be taken in doing other things. We have to be mindful of that as well. Okay, so are we okay with leaving that issue here? Okay, and I didn't hear any other items that we want to discuss under the budget changes. So now we're at budget requests. And the first item is, and I'm going to refer Jonathan, as up to $350,000 for a master plan needs assessment, or just generally looking at what we need to do in the recreation area to meet the needs of our residents over the next 20-year period. And so does anyone have any particular questions or comments on that?
Just a quick question would be, and this includes, because obviously much of our year this year was taken up with ball fields and all that implies. That this includes the community center analysis, because you mentioned architecture and all that kind of stuff, and obviously I think community center is top of mind for us, but this also is going to include the ball fields also, or how do it?
So by starting with a needs assessment and considering an advancement towards a facilities plan, it allows us to address those needs in the community. The existing facilities master plan is from 2009. The needs of the community have changed. Just tonight, there was the meeting regarding aftercare and the need for that at the school district. We're hearing about the ball fields. and the need for additional softball facilities. We still have unmet needs for neighborhood parks, for fields in general, the dog park, bike park, all still needs that were in our last master plan. But then this offers an opportunity to do a needs assessment for the full community and look at these spaces, where they should be located, and what will need to serve at those various facilities.
And how good, right? That's good, because I have to admit, I looked at that number, gave me a little bit of a surprise, because I look at like what we're getting with the M3 mobility study, which I view as kind of as much more comprehensive. It's like, well, that's 300, so this seemed high. What's your estimate on when we would see results from this? I mean, how long does a study like this take if we kick it off?
It has, in talking to other communities, it's a 2 to 3 year process, because with the needs assessment, you start with the needs assessment and then you roll into your master plan. So to go into that and then come up with the fiscal component after we find out what the community's needs are, traditionally it has been a rollout similar to that.
And is it also going to include, like, I'm kind of curious, funding options, like, because I think we're gonna, because obviously we're not gonna get this out of the general fund. So I mean, it'd be good to get the different aspects and how you generate kind of fees and revenue. Good. So so you'd expect a 2 to 3 year period with multiple report outs during the time, or so we can figure out kind of where we are and how we're doing.
Yes, still early in that process and gathering the information, but we'll be able to put together a request for proposals and work with the various companies to outline a process and bring that back to council for approval.
Thank you.
We don't need to talk about the details of this now, but well, I'm going to ask you if you think this is possible, but I think what we need to do is put a 2-year time frame on this, to be able 2 years from now to know what it is that the community wants to consider, and a proposal for how we might finance it, because that's going to be 2028.
Yes.
And our Measure H goes away. So I think our target time is 2 years for this project. So do you think it's, you don't, well,
it is in our absolute best interest, based on the life expectancy of some at the community center, as well as each rainy season we pass, we see more and more water coming to the roof of the community center. So finding out more about the state of that building and what the future of it is, so that we can address the needs of the community. Time is of the essence.
okay, thank you. And just say that, and I understand what you're saying about the 350,000, because I look at this, looking at the big picture, and we've kind of hit an equilibrium with our increased revenues and then our increased needs. And we just, to see a 350,000 chunk go away, but it's actually not. We need to spend that in order to be able to plan responsibly, what we do in order to meet our recreational needs. So should we just take a quick vote on that? We don't need to have public comment on each of these, right? We've had public comment.
So we would expect then, so we would think of this as 175 for this 2-year program, or is this 350 for the first year? How do we think about this number?
We'd have to look at it carefully, and we can come back and maybe make adjustments in mid-year if we needed to. We could start with a half-half, just based on the way that it would have to roll out, but we'd have to work with the consultants to see sort of how they would need to front load any of the needs assessment versus the heavier work on, I don't necessarily know that it's heavier, because where architectural may fall when we're looking at the community center too, just working out that timing through the process. I don't know if Mike, as the engineer, could speak to that more, but just at the rate that we can get the work done and spend the money, 50-50 may work too.
Because obviously that'd be a lot less painful in the current budget cycle.
I would recommend allocating up to 350,000, because you never know how much you're going to spend each fiscal year. And as an example, when we allocated money for the housing element, it straddle many fiscal years, but we kept that money and used it down,
Okay, so
Okay,
that's the way you would do it.
You would allocate it to the next fiscal year and then carry it over.
carry it over.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that's fine. So is everybody
Yeah.
all right with that expenditure? Okay, so then we're on to well, the ADA transition plan, 100,000. Any questions or comments on that? I think this is a sort of
Yep.
something we have to
Check
do.
box. Yep.
Right, okay, so we're all in favor of putting that in. Okay, on to, the allocation or going to the recommendations, we go to the Emergency Preparedness Commission and ask the commission to prioritize projects up to 250,000. Now, I will just say, I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say this now. I see the crossing guards as being more important than this amount. So if it was going to be either or, I was going to take it, well, I would rather spend this money on the crossing guards than on this purpose.
There's more here. Do you want to cut the number?
So
So
we don't have a-
yeah, so the
Yeah, I'm
250,
just saying that before everyone says yes, 250. I mean, we can, if the council still wants to do crossing, we haven't decided on that, but leave that open and then do this amount. I mean, we can make a final decision on this next week, next meeting.
Yeah, I'm mindful that we've set wildfire preparedness as I said our top priority. So, I mean, 250 is great. I mean, if it were 200 or 150, it's still a meaningful amount. You know, the wild card for me in this is Senator Grayson's proposal and how that does.
Right.
I mean, if he succeeds,
Can you say that again?
I'm sorry.
The wild card is what again?
The wild card for me is Senator Grayson's proposal from the state budget to those staging boxes on evacuation routes. I suppose if he's not successful, we could use a chunk of this for that purpose. It may be something you'd stage out over a few years anyway, so it's not like we're going to spend 250,000 in 1 year necessarily on that.
Right.
But I think we want to make some kind of a commitment that's meaningful for wildfire preparedness. Does it need to be 250? Well, maybe not.
I know you, because we're on the emergency preparedness. I know we sit through all the meetings. And I think they're as far as I know, there's not really a punch list right now ready to go.
Yeah.
I guess I'd rather see, personally, even though we're on the thing and it's a priority, some design ready kind of projects lined up to fund versus just a number to back into. I guess I feel slightly uncomfortable with that.
Because what's been talked about emergency preparedness are a variety of things. There's that community guide to wildfire safety. It needs to be we're out of print.
Yeah.
That's maybe a $20,000 number. There's other things. It's probably less than 50 right now, I'd say.
That's kind of my view. So it's hard. Yeah, I actually like that it's in here, and I think Measure H is the right place to fund it from.
Definitely.
But I would agree with you at the moment, with absent what I hear, 150 or 200, I think we'd still make a big effort. And then part of next year would be, okay, now let's kind of really get some projects set up there. Senator Grayson's number, I mean, I know it was almost dead before this budget being in state budget being a slight better position. We might be lucky, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's like, who knows?
Who knows?
But if we had something like 100 in this, I mean, that would be a meaningful start. We could, if indeed the senator's not able to get funding for those boxes, at least we could get a pilot going, perhaps.
right?
In that.
I think that's a good way to look at this, is to kind of have it there to be a backdrop. Can we put wording in here depending on how much we get from the state or not? Do we want to, don't make it that complicated, but if you do 100, then it's safe. I mean, and then it's.
Oh, we can get good stuff for 100, but for 250, I would kind of,
Yeah, I think we can.
You had mentioned that you would like to see a list. There actually is a list that was generated.
Is this the
that-
Tim Grayson list or is it different?
No, there was a much more comprehensive list that Andy Comley came up with.
Where is it?
We didn't put it in the packet because we can include it next week.
That'd be helpful.
like,
I think
the next time.
Yeah.
Because there's a long list of ideas that you can kind of see. You could have the Emergency Preparedness Commission look through that if they have a budget. But we can include that list if you'd like, and it does have some rough costs.
Okay, well, the fact that you and I don't know what that list is seems
Yeah.
Well,
odd.
it was in the materials.
No, was it? Where?
That was it.
I have, well,
You,
I had it and I can't find it, but I did have it.
well, okay, great. So I guess we should treat it a little bit like the traffic where it's, you know, the crossing guards where we think, but I have to be on the surface. I guess I would agree with the mayor that if we're going to shove a little bit, I'd be willing to trade off that a little bit, trade off the emergency preparedness stuff, absent of what we see the list, I guess.
Well, and
Thank you for clarifying that, because that was my question, similar to what you had about, like, let's look at the analysis for the crossing guards. I was like, well, what is on this list? I mean, I'm all for wildfire preparedness and safety,
Right.
100%, but
I agree with that.
think we're all-
completely. So when you put it in, well, you know, what are the things? How,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Yeah.
Oh, and do you have any other comments on this since you won't be here next time?
on the wildfire, no.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And I guess, I'm sorry, and also to be, because I guess I'm still slightly confused about the conversation about the 350 or the 175, just like how we allocate the money versus over the years, 350. Like, I guess I would like to see, I only want to put in the money that we can actually spend the next fiscal year, right? I mean, there's to be a whole punch list of stuff, right? But like, what do we put in there has to be the stuff that we would spend the next year, right?
Now,
I guess I'm,
usually the same thing, we have had the M3 study on the budget for the full amount for many years. We spend it down.
down.
And I think it is actually important if you're going to spend the money and you know that it's a project that's going to cost that, you should put it there so that you don't get halfway through and be like, oops, we forgot we had another half to go. So I just.
So you would just prorate over the 5-year budget. You would kind of, all right, so it wouldn't hit our next budget. I get it.
No, it would hit the whole thing this year, but it wouldn't, and then I roll it forward into the next budget.
Because the difference is we don't do, beyond the next year, we don't do a detailed
Right,
budget.
I know.
If
that's
we
right.
did a detailed budget,
We
then
could-
we'd put it in, but we don't.
Right.
So I think it's better to put all the money you plan to spend in the next year's budget.
Okay.
I don't think that you gain anything by spreading it out. It doesn't really affect the 5-year too much.
Okay.
It
Well,
just
Guess
balances.
we'll see the list then and
Yeah.
see what we can.
Okay,
agree
so
on.
that'll come back. We'll talk about that some more. Okay, the fourth item on the list is the AARD request for 25,000, which we received today. So comments and
Does staff have any thoughts on this? I mean, it was interesting. You mentioned we have 4 items and but all we have is just, I mean, I appreciate the comment from Grace, but has it had the same scrutiny as these 3 that are in there? Because I'm just kind of curious how that worked.
Jonathan and I have been talking to AARD over the last month or so about a potential part-time use of that facility for recreation, youth, and seniors, so that the city would establish a downtown presence for a limited period of time, because that kind of gives us some experience about how a downtown facility might work. We have not finalized how much, how many classes, and the terms of the agreement. Our initial thought was about $12,000 taken from the 3 budgets: rec, seniors, and youth, so that Jonathan can continue to service those 3 cohorts in the downtown. We are still working on it. We're not ready to come to you right now with an agreement, because we do need to have an agreement before we enter into such an arrangement.
okay, do you think it'll be possible to have something in the next set of council materials?
I don't think so. I think this will take a little longer. We only have 2 weeks in between, which means we need to finish up in 1 week.
Okay. But this, if we do decide to go forward, this is something we could add in July or August.
Yeah, as mentioned before, council can amend the budget at any time during the fiscal year.
Okay, all right. Is it feel comfortable with that? So, okay. All right, so the items that we've been looking at, we haven't the 350 for the recreation master plan needs assessment, 100,000 for the ADA transition plan. And if, let's just say 250 on the wildfire, that adds up to 700,000. So Tracy, can you just tell us what, if we were to add those, what impact would that have on the 5-year outlook?
So that would, at the end of the 5th year, the reserve would be down to 63%.
Okay. And yeah, I think at least from my point, of view, that's the main control number, because I would ask, okay, what's the deficit going to be during the next fiscal year? But that really doesn't, we know what we're doing. Okay. All right. So is there anything else on this? We'll resume this discussion on the 26th. 22nd? How about the 22nd? Do I hear 22nd?
Yeah.
Okay, 22nd. All right. Okay, anything before we leave this item? Okay, thank you very much for all the work on this. Okay, so we're now on to council commission reports. Anything to report? Jim?
This is a follow-up to the last session. So Councilman Vice Mayor McCormick and I met with our East Bay Mud representative, Luz Gomez, last Thursday and talked her through and then walked a bit through the aqueduct pathway. I'd gotten from staff earlier a really great, 8-foot long map of this, and we kind of talked about it. Then we walked behind the Brant and along the trail that's been done, and then beyond from Dolores up to the crest where you can look down to the BART parking lot, just to give her a feel for what would be coming. And it was a good session. She seemed frankly kind of amenable to it. She's meeting with the general manager at East Bay Mud tomorrow. And I gave her the map and said, we're happy to talk and try to figure out what works. We just need to know, we want to work cooperatively with them and, try to make this, it's ambitious, but let's try to figure out how we can make it work. So it was a good session.
Yeah, very encouraging, actually. Very encouraging.
Yeah.
So. Okay. I did attend the mayor's conference this past week, and there's a couple updates from that. We did get an update from the ABAG executive board meetings talking about the next housing element. So just a couple of things. You heard the two. So the 7th housing element's coming. Our due date is going to be January 31st, 2031. HCD, same thing, giving it to ABAG. They're going to allocate among the 101 cities, 9 counties. There are going to be 2 new considerations that were not there before made for homelessness and fire danger. Which is interesting. Unclear though to me what the fire danger, like what map are they going to look at for fire danger, right? Because they're only going to look at very high fires. I mean, it's great for Moraga and Orinda. Unclear. I don't not know what that means for us, but it's interesting because obviously different maps show us with different impacts. They're adding 2 new income levels. Right now, obviously, we are used to the moderate, low, and very low. They're going to be adding acutely low and extremely low, which is interesting. And they couldn't even go over, I forget who was, Cindy So was giving the report out, didn't even remember which one was which as far as the which one was lower, because they both sound pretty bad. But it's, and they did say just that the overall allocation will be higher overall. That will be allocated out. So it's not, I know. So it's going to be, we just buckle up. Yeah. So it's going to be even more. Yes. So anyway, that was interesting. I'm hoping that, again, obviously we hope the fire danger, we are considered appropriately, not just basing on the one high severity, very high. I just have to mention that Clayton finally got their housing element done just like last week or 2 weeks ago. Congratulations, Mala. 3 years late on this thing, and but they did not have any builder's remedy apparently, which is just amazing, right? Because obviously They are really lucky. I think just about a variety of factors conspired, but I just think that was very notable. And the county, they're meeting this tomorrow night, I think, to deal with the implications of not getting their sales tax measures passed. So they're going to be doing their cuts. And so they were, I mean, obviously, I think for Citizens Lafayette, the cuts are not going to be that impactful, truthfully, but it is going to be impactful for the county. Even though I think they're probably asking for more than they needed, but still, it's a big deal. And BART is very worried. They're reading that the county sales tax failure and projecting out to November, and they are very worried. So they should be. So anyway, I thought it was interesting to get that thing. And then finally, I on Mayor Andrews' behalf did present. It was at the Spirit Van 20th anniversary celebration and presented a proclamation there along with Moraga and Orinda. So that was exciting.
A quick SWAT update is the Youth Ride Free program is going to happen again this summer, which is, we voted on that and funded it, which was very nice. And then the other thing is that Councilmember Cervantes and I are going on a trip to Sacramento on Wednesday to advocate for all things Lafayette, and especially wildfire. Yes.
I want to just report that I also attended the Spirit Van 20th anniversary party.
So sorry,
Okay.
Councilmember Candel, you were there, absolutely.
It was such a great party. It was such a great event. It was just so cool to see all of the patrons there, to hear about how much that program means to them. It was very, very inspirational. Really great event all around. I also gave a welcome to Lafayette address at the Move Bay Area Summit that happened here last week. It was a group of transit advocates that came together to talk about transit funding, expansion of service, all of that. A pretty big challenge, big kind of nut to crack, but it was an interesting group that was assembled. I unfortunately couldn't stay for very much because had folks coming in from out of town and kid graduating that afternoon. So, but it still looked like a very good full crowd, and I hope they had a good visit to Lafayette.
I can feedback that Matt Pease from the chamber attended the whole thing, and he said it was very encouraging. He was very he said it was great. Everybody was just top notch and on it, and he was very encouraged. And his takeaway was that every one of those transit agencies that were here and represented, there were a ton of them. BART is the lifeline. All they care about is all their linkage gets to BART, and then BART takes it whatever. It was really fascinating that without BART, all of those subsidiary kind of transit, at least local-ish transit agencies, just kind of fall apart because they don't have to worry about getting to San Francisco. They sort of worry get people to the BART train, for example. So he said that was, and I was like, oh yeah, it is interesting if you think about it. It's that's the backbone. So anyway.
And just a quick reminder of some dates. We have a special council meeting on June 29th for State of the City address and recognition of all of our volunteers. And then on July 2nd, Thursday, July 2nd, we'll have our a 250th anniversary program focusing on the Marquis de Lafayette and his role in the revolution. And we'll have family activities and other things that you'll be hearing more about. And then on July 30th is the next, the second Hello Lafayette event, and all council members are invited to attend and participate in that. Okay, anyone have anything else?
The park-related development fees, is that something we're supposed to be discussing, or?
Yeah, I think, Jonathan, we're going to do that for next week, next meeting, correct? We got the staff report.
Yeah, we can. That is just backup to the adjustments to the fees that were included with the budget. So that is just the backup material for that. So it can be included in the next. If you have any questions for it, I'm happy to answer at this meeting on that.
Okay, so we're on to item 16B, Councilmember Cervantes.
Yes, thank you. So Vice Mayor McCormick and I and Chair of the Commission, Crime Prevention Commission, Tracy Riley, did interviews a few weeks ago. We had two candidates, good, robust discussion. And I'm always just amazed or impressed by individuals willing to commit time to better our community. And so you just have to appreciate someone being willing to step up. We had a good discussion after the interviews, and the three of us recommended Bill Frazier to take on that open spot for the commission. So that's our recommendation.
Are there any questions? Is there any public comment?
None.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt Resolution 2026-41.
And I will second.
Appointing
I thought that
Bill
was-
Frazier.
So moved.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it's unanimous. All right, the meeting is adjourned at 10:10.